Welcome. Welcome to Gosney Show. I guess I should just stick with. Let me just say, this is the Gosney Show, Steve Gosney Show. Now I got to come up with the exact title. Welcome. It's 8 o'clock. You know what time that is, right? Just having fun. And my buddy, Sea of Tranquility, not my buddy, he never invites me on. Sea of Tranquility, invite me on your show because I completely ripped off this idea from Sea of Tranquility, which is one of my favorite music review channels. His tastes are very much aligned with mine. And I would be happy to come on a show with him sometime, but he doesn't even know I exist. But Sea of Tranquility said this live stream, the 20 albums that changed my life. And you know what? We got a little special surprise for everybody who's tuning in here today. A little special surprise. And that is we have a special guest who is from the chat. He is one of you. He is a person that you may have seen, you may have recognized. And it is a special thing to have somebody first time streaming, I think. First time on a live stream. And his name, does anybody guess who this might be? The Lord of the Ree. Lord of the Ree. So you ready? Want to see what Lord of the Ree looks like in the flesh? There he is.
Ahoy.
Lord of the Ree, one of my longtime channel subscribers. And he's a musician and also now he's a professional guy, a regular folk, but we're all wish we could be like super rock star musicians, and we have our rock star dreams. And Lord of the Ree is somebody that we've shared, and actually we both have a mutual interest, and that is the Paul Reed Smith guitar.
Yep.
And when he was looking for a new guitar, I said, the Paul Reed Smith, I think, has the best tremolo system, the best whammy bar system on the market, bar none. I really think their system is the only one that I can deal with. I don't like them generally, but that one, when I want one, I get that because it's very good. What now? And I suggested that, and he's like, I'll check it out. What is your impression, Mr. Lord?
I like it. I don't use it a whole lot, but it definitely has its place. Especially getting those little, even just adding a little flavor of vibrato, is fun. Yeah, and this is my cat, Mr. Boone.
Okay.
Named after Daniel Boone, famous man.
Let me see here. I'm going to let me see what I got. I'm also going to invite somebody else. We might have somebody else show up. We'll see. But we're going to talk about albums that impact. Now, this is albums that changed my life. Now, this is different than my favorite albums, which may be a different stream. It will be a different stream someday, maybe. But I thought this was an interesting concept because how music impacts us, right? And you and I as musicians, it transcends sort of the everyday. It brings us, I think, one step closer to God. It's a level up. And there are moments when you're an auditory music guy, there are moments in which kind of it gets cranked up. An expert, if you want to come on, you can come on. The expert may come on. If he does, he's got to have a top 10 list because I'm going to go through. Yeah. I've got a list. I've got 20 here sitting ready to go and a few others, which we'll go through and I'll explain why. But I'm going to let the guests here have, because that's a lot of 20 is a lot, but I'm an obsessive guy. But Ree and maybe whoever or anybody else was going can do their top 10. And so is that fair? So here, let's talk about how does it impact your life as opposed to being your favorite album? Well, it's transcendent. It's like it opens your eyes. You hear something and you're like, this is something different from what I've ever heard or seen before. And it opens your eyes to a whole new world of music. It sort of opens a gate. What do you think about that definition?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you hear it and it takes you back to like a moment you heard it or something you were doing when you were listening to it. And then it kind of imparts with something that you take with you for the rest of your life.
Right, exactly. And so let's say hello to some people. We have Lord of the Ree, who's here. And we have Shane Sousa, of course, my super mod. Thank you for being a good mod. He's an excellent guy. I met him. Zach, The Shags will not be on my list. Zach, followed by Ginger. Well, you might be close on that one. Maybe we'll see. Not David Hasselhoff. Yellow, Orange, Red. Hey, Yellow, Orange, Red. I'm at 28,000 words now. Here's my draft of Death Penalty Desires, Passion, Murder, and Death Row. 28,000 words. I think it's 170 pages. So she's been following along, helping me a lot. Good, right? You're out of bubble gum. All right. Expert. Freedom Ring. More wholesome stream. I hope I didn't. I'm glad I didn't chase her off, because this is a very respectable professional person, and I respect you greatly, and I thank you for coming back after my dirty Death Penalty Desires book.
Has anyone told them that their bell cracked? I think they might want to get that fixed.
Yeah, the bell is cracked. What are we going to do about that?
Right down there.
Porcelain is here. No, I can't say that. Lily,
The
thank a
Brucie.
farmer. Thank you, farmers. Trish is no, you're not late. We're just getting started.
Yeah, we're not really late, unlike some other streamers.
Yes, and this is good. Let's see. Who else we got here? AJM and AJ McM. I'm not sure how do I say your name, AJ, over on Rumble. Good to see you. Black Sabbath and Tool. See, there's a man of my close heart.
I love Sabbath so much.
Yeah, Trish, this is not my concept. This is Sea of Tranquility's concept. He's an excellent streamer on music. And I will say I completely ripped off his idea. But you know what? If he doesn't want me ripping off his ideas, he can invite me on his channel. I would love to be on one of his panels talking about music.
Yep.
Texas Jen.
That's how you capitalize on the stream, is you get everyone on your stream to talk about it.
Right. Good to see you guys. Let's see who else we got. We got a crew. Maine Coon twins. You got a cat? I'm just guessing. All right. Well, let's get started. So we got our concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so Lord is just going to throw stones at my my first 10 stupid album picks. And I guarantee you this is actually embarrassing. All right. And I'm going to start with my embarrassing picks. And that would be, I got 2 embarrassing picks. Now I'm wondering how much I should, well, all right. The first embarrassing pick, maybe not, I don't know, is the Bee Gees' Greatest Hits. This was really like the first album I ever got. And I had this on 8-track tape from Ronco, not really. I had an 8-track tape, right? But this album is just packed. I mean, when you listen to it, I loved disco, and I was growing up. I was a little kid, and disco was great. And this just spoke to me. I mean, now when disco began to suck, and I got into rock and heavy metal and stuff, this was definitely out. But then now, as I'm older and I'm more secure in my masculinity, Bee Gees have come back, and I recognize that this is a phenomenal group, a beautiful album, and I love the Bee Gees. So I'm picking, this is my first album. This is going to be in date order, you folks. K-Tel, right? Upon the Horizon, remembers. So Bee Gees' Greatest Hits. This was the first music that I really ever had that was mine, that I listened to, and it was like, I listened to it, right? Okay, so that's, how did it change my life? Well, first music. Now, here's another one. This one, well, okay, I guess I can do it this way. I'm going to pick between 2. I'm going to talk about the debate here. So this is going to give you guys a little feel for what we're doing. These are 2 movie soundtracks. I'm going to pick one, because we can't pick the same band more than twice. This isn't necessarily the best album or your favorite album of the band. It's the one that changed your life, right? So these 2 movie soundtracks, I would say, really kind of opened my eyes from disco, which was Bee Gees and Village People. And then I started listening to some other stuff. And the first one, and this is very strange, you guys are going to laugh at me, but I'm revealing my heart to everybody. A Star is Born by Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson. Now, you may think that's ridiculous. And it is. Okay. My mom loved this album. My mom had the Streisand hair. She loved Chris Christopherson, this studly guy here. And I remember watching this movie, and I thought this movie was great. I love this movie, and I loved the music in the movie. And that's what I'm talking about, is if you want to hear Barbara Streisand at her best, this, I mean, the Evergreen is the one everybody knows, Love's theme from Evergreen. But there's also, I mean, the songs on here, Lost Inside of You, holy cow, emotionally. The Woman on the Moon, if you want to hear Barbara Streisand at her best, listen to The Woman in the Moon on this album. And I Believe in Love. These are great. And they were written by Paul Williams, musical super. No, who was it? There's a famous writer here. But these were great stuff. Let's see. Paul Williams, yes. Yeah, Paul Williams was the guy. And Chris Christopherson, now he played this rough and tumble rock star who was aging. And his tracks in here rocked, I will say. And this was maybe my first, like, watch closely now. It was orchestra, it was kind of band, it was movie soundtrack, but it was rocking. And then, of course, Hellacious Acres, Crippled Crow, great. And then, I mean, this is a great album. And I know that it sounds silly, but it had it. Now, this is the first movie soundtrack that blew me away with Barbara Streisand singing and the rocking of the thing. And the movie was excellent. I love this thing. There's one other movie right around the same time that I'm going to say had a similar impact. And we're going to pick between one or the two. Now, I'll just show it. Star Wars. And the soundtrack to Star Wars is great. The soundtrack is like watching a movie. John Williams at his best. Now, the problem
I had those on CD too, all the soundtracks of the original 3 movies.
The problem with picking this, though, is there's all the Star Wars nerds like, no, but the third one is better, and all this stuff.
No,
you gotta understand this.
That's the best one.
But when I was growing up, okay, I saw this movie 36 times in the theater. When I was growing up, all we had, I mean, this was the first movie, was the only thing that was out there. And it wasn't Star Wars TM. It was this great movie with a great soundtrack. And I listened to this music in my room. I would only, you could only go see the movie by going to the movie theater. And I'd listen to this in my room, and the music was, you could relive the movie through the music, and it was phenomenal. It's a great production. Yeah. John Williams at his best, London Symphony Orchestra. So this kind of opened me up to classical music. So between these two, I'm going to go with Star Wars. Now, the problem is it's because what Star Wars is now, it's hard to understand the impact, how it changes your life when you hear it when you're a kid. When this is the only movie, there's one movie and there's one soundtrack, and this is it, and it's great. And there's not all this drama associated with Star Wars, right? Fair enough.
I was a kid when the prequels came out, and granted, they're not, depending on who you ask, they're not as good as the original trilogy, but I kind of got that, because I was a kid whenever the, Phantom Menace, Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, then Revenge of the Sith came out, so.
Oh, this is like Upon the Horizon. It's meeting out the wisdom. Thank you. Good to see you, Pawn. How's everything going? Nice to see you. See, Lord of the Ree, you recognize him from the chats. This is his first appearance on the thing. All right, so we're going to go through now. This one's a little out of order, but I'm going to go throw it up there. But I needed to choose between those two. So now we're on, this is 2. We're on number 19. This is number 18. Is War, Why Can't We Be Friends? Now, this album, I was probably 8 years old. This was the first group I ever saw live at the Peabody Auditorium in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Very cool.
And it was this tour, and this is a criminally underrated band. And this album is the place you need to start. It's probably their top album. I love this album. And when I went and saw them at the Peabody, I actually got to sing with the lead singer during Why Can't We Be Friends. He came out of the stage, and we were the only white people there. And I was this little 8-year-old white kid
I think I've heard in
the crowd. And he's singing, Why Can't We Be Friends? And then I'd sing, Why Can't We Be Friends? I sang with the lead singer of War at 8 years old in the Peabody Auditorium in Daytona Beach, Florida. So that there's, like I said, there's an association with this. It's not necessarily the music, it's the fact that that was a big impact, right?
It helps that the music is good too.
The music is also great.
Doesn't hurt.
Have you ever heard this album?
I've heard that song, definitely.
Lowrider. Everybody knows Lowrider.
Of course. Yeah.
Lowrider.
Back when George Lopez was funny.
Oh, look who we got showing up here. We've got the expert. Are you an expert on everything or just one thing?
It's whatever you want me to be.
Okay.
Whatever you want me to be.
Are you an expert?
I'm a very opinionated person.
How about music?
I'm a whiner about music because I have a very distinctive background taste.
I whine about a lot of things.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, okay, I see everybody saying I'm dominating the conversation, and yes, it's my show, and these are my guests. I get it, but the rules are for the show, and Lord of the Ree has pre-agreed to this. I get to do 10 albums first. It's 20 albums. I get to do the first 10, and then once we hit the top 10, Lord of the Ree and Expert come in with their top 10, and then we start chipping in. Now because you're robbed of the first 10, you guys, you can have honorable mentions. All right. Why shouldn't I ask Expert? That's what he's here for. He's supposed to give.
Yeah, he's the expert.
I did. I sang with the lead singer of War at 8 years old. That is true. Okay, the next album. So now I'm like kind of into music. I'm listening to Star Wars. I'm listening to Chris Christopherson, and my brother is over there in his room. He's older than me, 3.5 years older. So he's playing all his stuff. He played stuff like he loved Boston. That was that first Boston album. But the album that he had that really kind of I listened to, and I'm like, wow. And it's an album called Frampton Comes Alive.
Frampton Comes Alive. Everyone and their mom has Frampton Comes Alive.
I know, but when I listened to this when it first came out in 1977. So, and it was like, and I remember like, boy, that the production of that, the way the guitar and the keys and the dynamics, the whole album, the show, it was just a perfect show, a beautiful song. Every song on here is great. It's a double album, of course. And of course, the thing that really hypnotized me, because it was the big gatefold album, and you'd pull it out and you'd see like, and let's see if I can do it here with see, like it goes like this and the gatefold comes down, you see the whole deal. Yeah. But I could never connect that face with this face on the bottom here. I'm like, what's this guy? What's this pink hair? Is that a chick? I don't know. So I was a little afraid of that pink hair and the album being like, that's a little gay.
A little bit. But on the back, I was comforted because you don't know what these guys look like when you got a fold out album, you're listening to your stereo, and you don't have any music videos, you don't have anything. I don't know what Peter Frampton looks like, and I thought he was this chick with pink hair. But music, top Megan Rapinoe playing a guitar.
Just the quality of the sound is so perfect. The guitar, the way it integrates with the bass and the drums and the vocal and the keys, that keyboard is just perfectly integrated there. It's the mix, the songwriting, just a magical album. Okay, so can I keep moving now? Who here has read The Summer Friend? Raise your hand if you've read The Summer Friend. Because
I was that day teacher, sorry.
The Summer Friend, Surfing, Music, and Growing Up. If you've read The Summer Friend, you will know my next two choices, because this book talks about how these next two bands, I will say bands and albums, changed my life. And because of how it was an awakening of adulthood. So what I've talked about up to this point are basically when I was a child, and then I heard this music, and it woke me up from childhood, and I entered into this new world of, I wouldn't say adulthood, but post-childhood. And that first album is called Zeppelin 2.
I have that one.
The Brown Bomber. And this is actually I actually have it on the box set, the remastered box set. So
right over there with my
Yep,
I've got it.
But here's the problem that I've got. because there's two other Zeppelin albums that I would put as life changers. There's also 4. All right. And there's also Song Remains the Same. I have this in 3 different, well, actually probably 6 different versions. So, this album I have burned into the ground. Now, so what do I choose? Okay, so here's the question for the chat. And only people that had read The Summer Friend get to vote. And that is the life-changing album Zeppelin 2, which was the first Zeppelin I ever heard and changed everything and made me throw out. I traded all of my Bee Gees and Village People discs or 8-track tapes for one scratched up Zeppelin 2 album.
Worth it.
But it was worth it. And this album, and I just, come on. Or, okay, so that's choice number 1. Or number 2, which is the soundtrack to The Summer Friend, which is the side 2 here, Misty Mountain Hop, 4 Sticks, dum bum bum da da dum bum bum da, right? That, or Song Remains the Same, which reminds me of the movies, going to the midnight movies and seeing Jimmy Page on a big screen blasting from the stereo, and life-changing, like, idol, the guitar god on the screen, right? I don't know. This is a tough choice. So is it Zeppelin 2, Zeppelin 4, or Song Remains the Same? Tough choice. Okay, so if I'm gonna actually say it, I'm gonna go with Song Remains the Same. And I'm not saying this. There's really no best album. There's no worst album. Every episode of the album is great. But if I was going to say which one changed my life, it's Song Remains the Same, because the midnight movie, I have memorized every note of 30-minute Dazed and Confused. So that's the one. So that's my pick for life changing. Okay, so what number are we on? We're on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're on 14. You guys writing down your top 10, right? So we're going to get some input from the expert. You got questions?
Hold on. Yeah, your number for Zeppelin 4. That's the Zoso album, right?
Right.
That had Stairway to Heaven.
Exactly.
Now, some people, that's the greatest song of all time. I'm not a fan of the song.
The guitar solo in this is so influential.
It's you cannot reproduce that guitar solo.
You can't.
So the guitar solo epic.
I love Jeff Beck.
Yeah, Jeff Beck.
Jimmy Page, Zeppelin in Seattle. Oh gosh, 72. Well, and this album came out like 76, 77, but the concert is actually that you see and that you hear is from 73. So you saw him in peak form. Yeah, and I know that, well, Stairway to Heaven, I've heard it so much, it's hard for me to listen to it, but every once in a while, I'll put that on, man. And when that solo lead breaks, that first note, I mean, come on. Lord of the Ree, come on. Straighten out the expert. As a guitar player, tell him what he's missing.
There's all kinds. You got, my favorite, which is a little bit maybe underrated. My favorite Zeppelin song is probably When the Levee Breaks.
Oh,
it's got the harmonica.
Mm-hmm. It's much more bluesy.
You can't. I need to do a Zeppelin stream, but it's hard. I can't rank them because they're all great.
It's hard, yeah. They're each like their own thing. It's definitely hard to have a best Zeppelin album.
My favorite Zeppelin song is "Since I've Been Loving You."
Oh yes. Oh, and "Since I've Been Loving You" on Song Remains the Same is amazing. And I think the guitar solo on No Quarter is probably Jimmy Page's best guitar solo, is on the live version of No Quarter from Song Remains the Same. The guitar solo on that song is just...
Jimmy Page is just ridiculous. Like, he's just on a whole other, like...
And he's not technically that great, but...
You don't have to be, though.
He is a musician. He's a visionary. He's an artist. God. He comes from... He's so unique and so wonderful.
So I do not want to say what I want to say, and so hopefully I can.
What? We lost expert. I don't know. Must be that phone outage.
Okay? I guess so.
That's what happens when you curse Zeppelin on my show.
Also, I think having like a solar maximum, so the solar energy is interfering with all the towers and everything.
So we're going to move on from Zeppelin, so we don't hear any we're not going to have any negativity on the stream. Do we agree? Okay. There he is.
I was actually going to praise them so much that it was going to make everybody else upset.
Oh, okay. Well, you can do that.
Jimmy Page is the greatest guitar player of all time. Fight me.
I agree. He's my number one. Absolutely.
People always say Jimi Hendrix, and
No,
the only one
not even close.
No, Jimi Hendrix just had a lot of
sounds come out of his guitar, but I wouldn't say he's like the best guitar player ever.
No,
and Hendrix is overrated. I made to say he's great, but he influenced all these guys and these English guys who vote. He was so huge and he was so kind of a spaceship from out of nowhere, and he did things that nobody else did. But the other thing that he did was he died young, and that gave him sort of a legendary status.
Yeah, that's the only reason anyone likes Nirvana.
Right. Well, you can say that as a Nirvana. I don't want to diss anybody's music. All right. So, but now if people have read The Summer Friend, right? We have voters in the chat who've read The Summer Friend. If you haven't, get it at stevegosney.com over here. It's all about music. There's a lot of music in that book. But this also, I said I traded all my 8-track tapes for that album. Well, that's actually not true. And if you read The Summer Friend, you know, I also got one other album. I got 2 scratched albums for it. And the other one was this one here, Pink Floyd's Metal. And You'll note it's the gold disc original master recording of Metal. And Metal had 2 songs on it that changed my life. One of These Days and Echoes. And Echoes, one of the greatest songs ever Pink Floyd ever wrote. And of course, One of These Days with that bass line, dum ba da ba da dum ba da 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 dum, right? Great stuff. And so I traded for those 2 records. Now, there's another Pink Floyd record though that then we're talking about 20 albums that changed my life. The other album I have is called The Wall. Now, a lot of people don't like The Wall, but note it's the original master recording of The Wall. This original master recording disc.
Album, it's good.
Let me show you. This is an ultra disc. See, does anybody know what an ultra disc is? This is an ultra disc. Here, I'll show you this one first. Ree knows what's going on. See, check it out. It's gold. 24 karat gold.
Very nice.
Pink Floyd ultra disc. These are, you can't get these anymore. Cool. These are basically $300 on eBay.
Oh, wow.
And I made the mistake of loaning this to my friend, Mac. You might have read about it in Prepare. Mac, my old friend, what's going on? Can I borrow that CD? Yeah, I'd love to record it, man. Buddy, give me the CD. And Mac taught me a really good lesson. My $300 precious gold ultra disc, irreplaceable Pink Floyd disc. He returned it here as a broken gold ultra disc.
I saw it earlier, but it's still painful.
Yes. So he taught me another good lesson, and that is don't ever loan something to a friend that you're not willing to give it to him.
I learned
How
that
do you
same
return
lesson.
something like that? I mean,
he never explained it. And he never paid me. I told him it was $300. He didn't pay me either. But anyways, the pain. So we have a choice here. No doubling up on the bands. We got The Wall and Metal. Metal, the album I got was Zeppelin 2 or The Wall. Now here's the argument. Here's another point I want to make about The Wall and why I'm going to pick The Wall. Because I remember in 1979, I was in New Jersey. I was 12 years old. And I was at my cousin's house up on he has a house on the Delaware River up in New Jersey, a place called Pennsgrove. And you can see his place on the river. You can see the bridge, and he has a 2-story house, and you look out over the Delaware River at night. You can see all the oil refineries on the other side of the river. Nighttime, beautiful. And I I stayed over there, and I put these headphones on and listened to this cassette tape of The Wall through headphones, watching this river, listening to this epic piece of music. And I was just like, what is this? This is just great.
I had a similar experience.
It was a magical musical moment. And I said, can I buy this from you or take it? And I was 12, didn't have any cash, right? He says, well, you can scrape my pool for it. And I thought that was a good deal.
Now, was it an actual pool or was that a euphemism for something?
Oh, no. I scraped his entire pool with a little chisel, he had his pool drained, and I scraped his pool so that I could get a cassette tape of the wall.
Worth it.
All right. So it's got to be the wall. And that moment, it captures a moment in time that I remember very distinctly at that living in his house. All right. Now, let's see. I've still got a few more. These are so then you're going to be in the top 10. You guys getting ready? You got it ready to go, right?
Yep.
This album is like rock and roll. This album blew me away. Rush, All the World's a Stage. One of the greatest albums of all time. Live. And notice there's live albums in here because live albums have an energy to them that I just loved. And this was a great Rush album. And people say, well, 2112, Moving Pictures, Hemispheres, all that stuff, right? I love it. I'm not saying this is their best, but it's up there. But this album, when I was a kid, it was just so rocking, and that bass. I mean, this is why I was a bass player right here. Look here, Rickenbacker. I mean, that is Geddy Lee.
Like the man himself.
This is why I love the Rickenbacker. This is why I loved his bass tone. I love the song By-Tor and the Snow Dog. Holy cow.
Alex Lifeson's also one of my favorite guitar players.
Lifeson is criminally underrated. He's just surrounded by greatness. It's a great band.
Yeah. And he was in one of the Trailer Park Boys movies.
Yeah. We were watching that actually earlier. So Geddy Lee, and there's that. All right, now I'm going to go. Here's a really oddball one out of left field that you'll never expect and never guess in a million years. Never. And I'll even tell you the band and you'll never guess it. Queen. Okay. Now, I never was a big Queen fan. But if you've read The Summer Friend.
I like me Queen.
I like Queen. I like them now. I still listen to them and they're good, but they're never really any, I can't say any of their albums I listen to consistently or think they're a great band and all. I get it, but not one of my favorite bands. But an album that changed my life. It's not even like a favorite album, but it's one that changed my life. And this is ridiculously stupid. But my friend, when I went over to my friend Andrew's house and we would listen to records, his brother Sam was super cool. And he introduced me to this record. He's listening. He's like, this is a great record. This is a great record. And I'm like, okay. And when Sam said it, he was cool. And so he deemed coolness upon this record. And it was Flash Gordon's soundtrack. Flash. He'll save every one of us. And he was saying it's so unusual because the movie dialogue is all over this thing. It's like listening. It's almost like they took the movie and just transcribed the music. And some of the cool stuff on here, like, like the cool rhythms, and I just remember the visuals this was so connected with the movie that the visuals kind of put together and it had an impact. I don't know. It's an odd pick. Now here's another one that you will never guess in a million years because nobody knows what it is. Hold on a second. Okay. And it's a band called Stranger. No Rules. Have you ever heard Strangers, No Rules?
Never heard of them.
Exactly.
I like the art
right here. There's the band. This is the biggest band that you will never have heard of. This was a local Florida band. Greg Billings, Ronnie Garvin, Randy Holt, Tom King Cardenas, and John Price. You might have seen I got Tom King to sign a bass. He lives over in Tampa. These guys were so cool. It was a huge local band. They were the biggest band. They signed to CBS Records and put out a record. This is their second record that they self-produced. They played for like 15 years throughout clubs all over the Southeast. And they had a big hit called Swamp Woman. And then they had another hit called Okeechobee Whiskey. If you want to hear them, go pick up Okeechobee Whiskey. But this album was like, they saved up. Like they had that first album, then they got screwed by the record label.
Ouch.
And they saved up their like they had to wait out their contract. They got paid to not do anything. And then their album just built up. And they released this on their own label and toured for 15 years. They put out like 6 albums. This is their kind of their unloading albums. And it's Give Me the Rock. It starts out. And I saw these. I must have seen these guys 50 times in clubs around Florida. And great band. So Swamp Woman is their big hit, but listen to Okeechobee Whiskey by Stranger. All right. So I'm picking this because of the band, the local connection. All the guys were so cool. And the bass player is still a friend. And the singer, and the singer, they're connected. Like they're in the music industry. They were around UFO and Nazareth and Pat Travers Band and Bobby Frizz Band and AC/DC. The lead singer, Brian Johnson from AC/DC, is a big fan. In fact, he even sings on one of Greg Billings' albums. Brian Johnson does.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're really connected. In fact, what was it? The bass player told me a story about how he played with Tom Petty. And Tom Petty, and he was playing bass with Tom Petty, all kinds of good stuff. Now, here's another movie soundtrack. And this is, somebody mentioned this earlier, Risky Business. This is the movie that defines my generation.
There you go.
And I love Rebecca De Mornay defines my.
Looks like State U.
But look, this is probably the greatest soundtrack album of all time. Look at the lineup here. Okay, we got Bob Seger, Tangerine Dream, which we'll hear about later, Muddy Waters, I'm a Man. Oh yeah. Right. AY. Jeff Beck, The Pump, Prince, DMSR, Journey, After the Fall, Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight.
You gotta have
Tangerine Dream. And I will also mention there's a couple songs on here that did not make the album that were in the movie, such as the Talking Heads, the doo Swamp. What's it? Hi. Whoa, let's sing that song.
I can't say.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings not mute. I'm sorry, I'm talking over my friends here. I invite them on and I talk over them.
I'm chiming in here and there. Maybe I just need to turn my mic up. I don't know.
Abort, are you asleep or are you writing?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, listen, man. This is like opposing counsel. Okay, I'm taking notes of what you're saying, and I'm over here. And I want you to know you've already changed a couple things because, like, I had and well, you'll see. I'll
okay. Well, you're up now. Okay, that was that was the 20, and we're kind of going in date order, right? And this is dating me and my age. I get it, but it's albums that changed my life, not your life. But these are ones that changed. Like when I heard this soundtrack album, every song, and Tangerine Dream, holy cow, and Prince and Jeff Beck and everything, Phil Collins. I mean, who can forget? I can feel it, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, okay. You hear like a few hits of a couple toms and you know what song it is.
Right.
Like, that
drum machine. All right, so now we're in the top 10. So I'm going to bring in my guests now, get to chime in. I've dominated the conversation long enough. Now I can see why nobody likes coming on with me.
What are you talking
Let's
about,
go with Lord of the Ree first.
Okay.
What would be your number 10 album that changed your life?
My number 10, so that would be the one that changed my life probably the least. I would say is probably, let's see if I have it over here. And it's a great album, but it's definitely not like the most impactful, but I got a few of these over here. Now this is interesting because this is another soundtrack and we have a bit of an anime crossover because this is the Cowboy Bebop original soundtrack.
Wow.
And one, it impacts me. It takes me back to watching it on TV with my brother, but also it was my first, what really got me into, because at that time I was a little skater punk. So I was pretty much just listening to skater punk and metal. And I was like, what is this? This is jazz. I like jazz. So I picked that up.
I'm having physical media
a couple times a week, and it's great.
Well, note that Lord of the Ree is representing the millennial generation. As I assume the expert, you're also in the millennial groupings.
I've been here since the beginning of time.
Really, the expert exists
I
outside.
just exist, man. No.
All right, so that was an interesting pick. Now, write that. Explain that to us. Say it again, so we can take notes.
It's the Cowboy Bebop original soundtrack for the anime. Has most of the songs that are used in it, and I picked that because one, it was at a time where my brothers were mostly what I had. Didn't spend a lot of time with my parents because they both worked a lot, but had a lot of siblings, so we kind of raised each other. So that was one of the things we would do, is we would watch that show. And then again, it was kind of helped me expand my musical horizons from being a skater punk into listening to more stuff like jazz, which then opened the door to other stuff, which we can talk a little bit about later.
Okay, and we have a couple people chiming in here. I love it. Blue Oyster Cult was always cool, but I gotta say, the coolest name in rock and roll, Buck Dharma. All right, expert. What's your number 10?
Here, he's going the room real quick while he's talking. So give me one second.
I don't really have mine ranked. I have a
Okay, we can just throw them out there.
Okay, so like this stream, it interests me, right? And like I tweeted back to you. Actually, what's funny is I almost said something about if you have the wall on there, I'm gonna have to rethink our friendship. And well, I knew you would have that. I'm not a fan of Pink Floyd.
Well, so I gotta say, I do not. I no longer support. Roger Waters. His politics have gone past the point of which I can actually buy anything Pink Floyd and enjoy it. But I love that Pink Floyd. I mean, Waters is a genius musically, but he's better with the band. To me, the sum of the parts is greater than the individual parts. That's Gilmore is musically much better, but the combination, the band, and what they did was very creative, and I respect it. But boy, Waters, I just can't stand the guy.
He's great. You're right. He is much better with Pink Floyd.
They have a very underrated bass player as well.
Now they do.
I don't think of them. Oh,
had.
What do you mean?
Some of the other stuff good, but yeah.
Explain yourself, Mr. Lord.
Like the bass on Money. Come on.
But you know that David Gilmour actually played most of the bass lines.
Well, there you go. That's why.
And I have that from a super reliable source. You don't even know how reliable.
Bro.
Well, I can tell you who it is. It's the one guy, the guy who turned down the bass slot in Pink Floyd. Tony Franklin. Tony Franklin was asked to join Pink Floyd after Roger Waters left. And he tells me, he played with David Gilmour. You know that the Kate Bush song, Running Up That Tree, or what is it? Running up that hill. You watch that video with David Gilmour and Kate Bush, and Tony Franklin's in there. Tony Franklin's played with David Gilmour, and Tony Franklin says that David Gilmour is an excellent fretless bass player and played most of the really good bass lines, like on the Pink Floyd albums. If you look at the wall, like the wall videos, you ever seen the videos of the concerts, like in LA and New York? They have these really grainy videos. Roger Waters is up there playing the bass, and they have a second bass player behind him because he can't play the bass. Sorry, guys. I gotta say, I gotta rip the scab off of Roger Waters because he is a scab. I love his cynical voice. I love his songwriting. I think he's amazing. I get it, but it's hard. It's hard to take when you're such a crazy man.
Going back to Star Wars, it's hard to with Mark Hamill because he's oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
All right, let's move on. So, Expert, did you name an album? I moved you around.
No, but I was gonna say was when you
oh wow, there we go.
Started this thing. Yeah, I responded to you on Twitter. It was like my first album that it came to my mind was Van Halen 1. And so a little bit back to this, my whole music thing was when I picked up guitar, and that then all of a sudden it's like you start learning, and then it's like you gravitate towards something. It's like, I don't know what it is, everybody has such a different musical taste, and you start gravitating towards things. And to make it simple, I'm the blues. I love the blues. But when I heard Van Halen, like it was like everything about Van Halen's first album was like you have to get it. It's just like it's so great. So I'm a
It was
kid. I get the
groundbreaking.
thing.
It's not their best album, but it is a groundbreaking album.
What do you think is their
an
best
album
album?
that changes your life.
What do you think is Van Halen's best?
I'd say the best Van Halen album is the one with Mean Street, fourth album. Everybody's not going to kick me.
Diver
I
Down?
don't want to hear about it later. No, baby.
Is that Diver Down?
No, not not Diver Down. No, it's Women and Children First. Then it's, come on, you guys. This is gonna. It's I
can't think of it.
Gosh, now we're losing our credibility quick.
I have an excuse. I'm a millennial. I'm not supposed to know this. So
no, everybody knows Van Halen.
Oh yeah.
I actually told that somebody as serious a heart attack.
Fair warning. Fair warning.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, let's see. So you've got.
But anyway, it was Eruption though. When I first heard Eruption, I thought this has to be keyboards, and I didn't believe it. And
that's what I thought too.
Like the classic rock station would always play Eruption going right into Girl You Really Got Me. So it's like the second and third song on their first album, and they played it as one song. And to this day, that is one song to me. You can't separate the two.
It is, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna, and since I mentioned it, I'm gonna give you another album that's a little different, but it's the first Firm album. And the reason I moved it ahead of the other album here that I had on the list. But the reason I did is because this was the first time I heard Tony Franklin on the fretless bass. And
they're a lot better than Flaccid.
What's that?
So they're a lot better than the Flaccid.
Yeah. The Firm was the band that was the super group that was formed by Jimmy Page after Led Zeppelin. And it had put out 2 albums. This is their first. And it had, the hit off here was called Radioactive. Satisfaction Guaranteed was also a great song. Midnight Moonlight, great song. Closer, all of these. This is a wonderful album, and I bought this because I was a huge Zeppelin fan. I was waiting for Jimmy Page to see what he was going to do, but then I heard this album, and the bass blew me away. And I was a bass player at that point, and I heard this fretless bass, and it was so prominent and in the front and made the music happen. I'm like, what is this? And it was Tony Franklin, and this blew me away. And so he's and I got to meet him. He treated me really kindly recently at the Lou Gramm show, gave me backstage passes, got to meet him after the show, signed my Firm album. And this album changed my life. I mean, I never could play the fretless bass, but this album made me feel like the bass could be something like at least hang. I mean, here's Jimmy Page, the greatest guitar player of all time, in my opinion. And I'm here waiting to pull this record up thinking it's going to be a Jimmy Page fest. And my favorite part of the album was the bass player. Now, maybe that tells me I was a bass player. Maybe that's what the lesson here is. But this album changed my life. And thank you to Tony Franklin, who's really one of the nicest guys in rock and roll. And actually, one of my viewers or one of my listeners and subscribers is best friends or very close friends with Heidi, who is Tony Franklin's wife.
That's awesome.
So, and Tony Franklin's he's very kind, very nice guy. He's going to write an autobiography. And one of my dreams and the thing that keeps my channel going is thinking someday he'll come on my channel. I get to interview Tony Franklin on my channel. Dreams still alive. All right. So Lord of the Ree, what else you got? What's number 9?
Number 9 is probably, where's my list here? It's definitely not as impactful, but one of the albums and now this is when I had started listening to more musically complex stuff, like the jazz kind of brought me into. And then I started listening to more complex metal music. And so the one that kind of expanded my horizon on that and kind of drew me into learning how to play heavy guitar and being more interested in that side of music was Colors by Between the Buried and Me.
Okay.
Now this one's messed up because, as Steve discussed earlier, never let someone borrow something that you can't live without, because I let them borrow this record and they left it in their car in the sun. And now it looks like something in a Dr. Seuss cartoon. So, but my favorite
I've actually
song
offered to buy people something they wanted to borrow before.
Yeah.
Let me just buy it for you, because I know I'm gonna have to buy a new one anyway.
Well, like these books, I always loved She and He. I have a bunch of these books laying around, and they're softbacks, because I meet somebody and I tell them about it. I'm like, you know what? Just there you go.
I started reading that on stream the other day.
Yeah, it's great. And I just give it to him. I said, here, take it. It's free. It's my gift to you. Because
I need to get a copy of it. That sounds awesome.
Never loan a book. Never loan anything to any friend that you don't expect, that you say, when you loan it to him, say, it's a gift. If you give it back, I'll be surprised and happy. But if you don't, that's fine, because it's a gift. Here you go. Because otherwise, stuff, money, just objects of no value, really, just nothing, breaks friendships. You don't want that. So give things to people. All right. Anyways.
And then even if you guys don't talk for a while, they'll start looking at the things like, oh, I got this from so-and-so. I wonder how they're doing. I should go hit them up. Yeah. Just like one of my friends, he wanted to borrow my copy of Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard. And I was like, I'll just buy you one. It's like $7. Here you go. And everyone needs that book anyway. So.
Well, so Expert, you're up. What's your 9?
So these things all came in. This is the order my brain popped them in, right?
No problem. You're here. You're guest.
Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. Beach Boys, Pet Sounds.
Really? Now, how did you determine that? Because a lot of people say they love that album, but it's like, oh, I'm told that I'm supposed to like this album.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you're into that point. So I like all the I like surfer music from the 60s. Late 50s even. I just think that is so cool. Wipeout is such a cool song, man. It's just cool. And Jan and Dean, Beach Boys, I would like the little old lady from Pasadena. I love the the California Hot Rod songs. Those are great. She's Real Fine, My 409, all that stuff I think is so cool sounding. Pet Sounds is more that's got Good Vibrations on it, right? And Good Vibrations is that song where it's like I remember this as like a kid listening to it. I'm like, I can't really figure out what I love about this. I don't know, but it just I cannot listen to a song that's like it talks about the sun gleaming through her hair, and it's like I can feel the sun. Like it's been raining for a few days, and then the sun breaks through, and you can feel it on your face. That's how that song just kind of hits me when I'm just not thinking about it. And Pet Sounds is great. And I'll tell you what, if you have an opportunity, there's on Apple Music, for instance, you can get it, and you can actually listen to the original mono versions of it now.
That's cool.
And listen to that back to back with the stereo, and I end up going for the mono, because I'm like, that's the way it was meant to be. That's the way they heard it in their heads. It's anyway.
Good choice.
Yeah, I like Pet
Interesting choice. See there, this is revealing. These kind of things, I love music and discussions, because you get to really understand somebody a little better by their musical taste.
That's fair.
Here's another one. This one I'm picking, and this is nobody will have this record, because this record really doesn't exist. But I'm going to talk about it because I have it.
It's Steve's next album coming out when you did his next book. Oh, The Police.
The Police. I love The Police.
Atlanta D'Amore. Have you ever seen that CD? Recorded live at the Omni, Georgia during 1983 U.S. tour.
Live albums are awesome.
Now, I will say this is not a legitimate album. Okay. Now I'm gonna explain myself here. I've got many explanations and explain why this album changed my life. I was going to put on here Synchronicity, which is their last album, right? And I will say I'll never forget. And people read The Summer Friend. There's part of my childhood growing up. One of my friends was a guy named Sam Cromarty. And he and I used to hang out. We were really close. And every time King of Pain, in fact, King of Pain comes on the radio, not my favorite Police song, but that song comes on the radio, and I can picture myself in his car, him driving his car, and we're actually driving at a particular spot on the road in his subdivision called the Trails in Ormond Beach. When that song comes on, it reminds me of being in the car with my friend Sam at this place. I mean, it's so freaking specific, and of course the Police. Sting is one of the all-time my big. Now I can't say I hate. I don't listen at all to his solo stuff, really. I mean, I listened to a little bit of it at one point, but let me show you a picture. Okay, this might explain things a little bit better. Here, can you see that? There's Sting when his bass playing prime on the Synchronicity tour. Now, why is this picture significant? What's he playing right here? You see this? See this right? This little instrument right here?
He's playing a bass.
That is a bass. Not only is that a bass, that is a Brooklyn Spectre. Okay. Now let me show you something.
Never heard of him.
It's hanging on the wall. No.
This is my number one bass.
That's
and
awesome.
That is a Brooklyn Spectre. That is insane bass. This one's Sunburst, which I love but it's exactly the same guitar.
That's awesome.
On the Synchronicity tour. And I found that bass, and I love Sting. I love this concert in Atlanta. I got my number one bass. I was really into Sting. That concert was phenomenal. If you want to see my top Police concert, it's actually better seen on the disc. Okay. And I love everything by the Police. And I played everything by the Police on the bass. I could play it all. And that was,
songs.
I you talk about albums that changed my life. I don't know if this quite counts, but I'm going to go Police Synchronicity Tour out Atlanta D'Amour, which is that, or you could say the DVD over there, which we shared before. But how's that for an odd choice? Okay, Ant, I hear you. Let's see what you got there. We'll talk. Atheist Ant, you better hang out. That's all I'm telling you. Okay, Lord of the Ree, what you got? What's number 8 for you?
Number 8 is, let's see. This one's going to be a little bit Scarecrow.
Ooh, John Cougar. That's interesting.
So a little bit of story behind that album is, I've always loved John Mellencamp. It was one of the bands that I used to listen to with my dad, and my grandma loved him too. So I would listen to them at my grandparents' house. But I came across this album at a record store when I was actually at I think it was a few years before they did the last Vans Warped Tour. And I was down in the city, and I stopped at a record shop, and this was on their shelf and just was saying, grab me. So I did. But another reason why it kind of was important to me is a lot of in that album, it's probably, I guess you could consider one of his darker albums, I guess you could say. And it definitely helped me work through, people can express themselves and their feelings through the way that they write their music. And part of, the song Scarecrow, Blood on the Scarecrow, all that stuff, and about the economics and everything. Being a millennial myself, it didn't impact me very much, but going through this stuff back in 2008, my grandparents had a farm and everything that, they ended up losing. Things were really rough for everyone. So it kind of helped me identify and be like, well, someone else has been through this and it wasn't the end of the world. And they were able to express it and kind of get that out. And so that kind of was like, And so that kind of took me down the more. First, I just started playing guitar just because, girls think that guys who play guitar are cool. So that was why I first started playing it. But then it evolved into something deeper. That was one of the big steps that helped me kind of use it as a therapeutic kind of. And I think that's part of also when my real playing and songwriting kind of really evolved as well, because then you start to put yourself into that thing, and everyone else who hears it, they kind of understand what you're talking about, and it helps everyone kind of identify with something that they've been through. It helps you move on in your own way.
Okay, before we go to the expert, I want to address a comment in the section. I know you guys are trying to pick fights here. but I got to correct something. He says, Porcelain Thunder says, this is not Sting's usual bass. Okay. I beg to differ here. Okay. Let me explain. I believe me, I know something about this topic and I will thoroughly discuss it. First of all, he played a whole bunch of basses. He had an Ibanez fretless. He had an upright. He would backtrack with uprights on a lot of his tracks on the records. And he was never really associated with any particular instrument. Really, he was a bass player, but he played all kinds of odds and ends for basses. I mean, he was not one that was like identified with a particular bass. On the Synchronicity tour, the first 2 concerts, he had his regular basses in tow. He went into a music store and found the white Brooklyn Spectre that he played on that tour. And as soon as he played that bass, he said, write the guy a check. He's not getting it back. He paid full price, walked out with it, played his white Spectre bass that currently sits in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, played that bass on the entire Synchronicity tour, except for the first shows. And so if any bass is associated with him, it's the white Spectre. Now, let's then move forward. People say, he's got that old vintage bass that he plays. Well, I will tell you, I don't like his bass playing anymore. Now, some people say he's gotten better. I don't think so. He had youth and vigor and energy in his original playing, and it doesn't excite me anymore. He's got this old cool bass that's from like 1952, and it's like one of the first ones, and he's so cool up there, and he's so impressed with himself. Well, I'm sorry, Sting. You know, the Spectre was Sting at his best. All right, so
I like the body shape.
You've picked a bone. You're picking a bone with me. I will say that I don't agree with that at all. If I was going to pick a bass that was is closest associated with Sting, as far as when I heard him and he was at his best, it's his white Brooklyn Spectre that's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Fair enough? Okay. You start this stuff. I'm going to finish it. All right. Expert, you've got a pick.
I want to say Lord of the Ree, the John Cougar album. So Scarecrow came out. That's his album right after and I love it starts off. Was it Pink Houses? I think's on there. Play guitar. You mentioned playing guitar with Cougar. That song is so just awesome. I love it.
His voice is great.
Do what?
His voice too. It's just like it's something else.
Oh yeah, but I think it's funny because I think of like as being like it's such an uplifting album. You said like Scarecrow is more of a dark album, but I think we can all agree that he is best as the Cougar. He's the
Cougar. You like the Cougar.
Yeah.
Now, are you saying that you're doubling up on this pick?
No, my pick was Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Okay, all right. Well, I got
that one, and that's another one that I was very young. I never heard of Jimi Hendrix, and a friend of mine's like, "Oh my gosh, it's all my dad listens to," and so started listening to Purple Haze, and I was like, I just love that song. I just couldn't get enough of it, and it's got a lot of Hendrix's raw guitar. That I think people associate with him as being like the greatest guitar player. But you have Hey Joe, Foxy Lady. I mean, come on, Foxy Lady is such a cool song, right?
It's probably my favorite song.
Do it now.
Crosstown Traffic is probably my favorite Hendrix song. The reverse piano, so cool, man.
I like.
So cool.
Are you experienced? Are you experienced?
Yeah, that sound, man, it was so cool. And then, actually, probably my favorite Hendrix song is "The Wind Cries Mary."
That's a great one.
And it's so different from everything else he did.
I will say though that I think Stevie Ray Vaughan's version of Little Wing is probably better than his.
Yes, Little Wing is awesome. Little Wing's awesome. That may be.
Good. I can't. That's up there. I mean, that first Jimi Hendrix album is something. I wouldn't say it changed my life. I know it changed a lot of boomers' lives, a lot of guitar players that were, ahead of me in age. And he had an impact on many guitar players. So it's hard to diss the expert when he comes out with some expertise.
The problem, the problem though with Hendrix is that the albums that came out after he died, and they're so great. And my favorite,
the live.
If you throw in that blues album they put out, Dude, now see, but I can't do that because like Hendrix, he did not. Those are just songs he played, right? He did not say, "Hey, I'm gonna put these songs together." And here's something that a lot of people forget about music, and I guess I should have said when you're talking about Zeppelin, is that the albums, a good album, is meant to be listened to from the first song to the last song, and it kind of will tell a story along the way. And Pink Floyd's big with that, right? Like you can't skip around too much on their albums or whatever. I think I get that from putting Pink Floyd in and like watching Wizard of Oz, which I've never done. So, but still,
I could never get it to sync up
with the assistance of some things that make it great. Let's say, and it's awesome.
But anyway, no, his blues album is incredible because I didn't know that side of Hendrix existed. But as far as albums that he was part of, like the production and everything, I think that first one, Are You Experienced? It came out at a time where it really did change things.
Definitely.
You know? All right. Well, the good pick. Okay, I can't argue with that. All right, now we're going to move into Metal Ghazni. All right, so we've heard this stuff, and I'm getting into my rock and roll and all that, but I'm going to think, okay, what was the first stuff that I heard? What was the thing that really got me into metal? And it's okay. So when did I first say metal is pretty cool? And that was a particular song, not really a particular album, but I'll pick the album. And it's Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. And the song, Screaming for Vengeance. Now, I know everybody listens to Hellion and Electric Eye, okay? And I mean, the whole album is really good. Riding on the Wind is great. Bloodstone, right? I mean, the whole thing is tough. But Screaming for Vengeance, that song, when Halford hits that last note, Rob Halford has a way of presenting drama in his singing. And he's got those incredible screams, incredible power that everybody knows him for. He is the metal god. But he also has a theatrical presentation that he doesn't just hit you with it, usually right up front. Usually he leads you up to it. So he teases you with it and he kind of lets it go and he gets the music and there's drama. And then there's a peak and there's an explosion. And that last scream on Screaming, I was like, whoa, what is that? I mean, I don't know. I just that it always gets me. And I would say that's the first. And of course, they were the first band that said, we are heavy metal. We agree, we're metal. We're not apologizing for it. Even Black Sabbath were like, well, we're hard rock. They really didn't embrace the concept. Priest was the one that said, heavy metal, baby. And they wore the leather, did the thing. They had no apologies. They didn't play soft songs or slow songs or dynamics or acoustic guitars. They're metal all the way. And Screaming for Vengeance was the album that first time that I'm like, I like metal. So that's my pick. What do you say? Ree?
I like Judas Priest. They're great. I'm more of a Iron Maiden fan myself, but I do like me some Judas Priest. And then I'd also say that Motley Crue is definitely one of my guilty pleasures too. Motley Crue. I don't have it anymore, but I had the record for what is it? Theater of Pain.
Oh, it's awesome.
Very cool. All right. One. Well, is that a pick or are you moving it?
No, that's not my pick. I'm just saying that's,
all right. You're just mentioning. You're just
you asked about metal because as soon as you said that, I was like, I can't think of anything metal. I was like, is Van Halen considered metal? I mean, maybe
that's hard rock. I mean, some people metalheads like Van Halen, but like I was telling my son, it was basically Priest and Sabbath. Those were metal. And then it's like, and then the metalheads that like those bands, it's like, well, I like Ted Nugent, I like AC/DC. They would talk about these bands like that, but they weren't metal. I mean, they were hard rock, right? And but we didn't have anything. There was no metal. So you went for the hard, and Van Halen, it's like, oh, that's metal, but it really wasn't metal. It was hard rock.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was metal either.
Yeah. But metalheads had nothing to listen to. So they went to the bands that were as heavy as they could get. Well, and that was.
You say that they're hair metal because hair metal is kind of its own thing.
Who's that? No, hair metal. No, Van Halen predates hair metal. They may have created hair metal.
Yes, well, with Sammy Hagar, definitely. But,
well, hair metal
Red
was really
Rocker.
the early '80s in LA, in the scene there. That was more like the Motley Crue. Motley Crue with Poison. That was the hair metal
Poison,
group.
yeah, Poison's good.
I love all that stuff, man. It's all about having fun. That's why I love it.
All right, Ree, what's your next pick here? I think you're on number 7.
Yeah. So, well, I was going to say this for a little bit later, but while we're talking about metal, I would probably have to pick which one is it? Guns N' Roses. But
A gun is you talking to Appetite?
you'd think so.
I would think so.
But it's what's it called?
Lies.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
It.
the one with You Used to Love Her.
Yep.
Patience.
Is that the Spaghetti Incident?
No,
that's their punk rock album.
Yeah, that album's okay, but yeah, no, Lies is probably definitely one of my top 10 albums, and it's.
Now, why did it change your life?
Well, that kind of style of music, the Guns N' Roses, and I almost picked a Megadeth album, but Guns N' Roses was a little bit more impactful on me because Megadeth's cool and everything, but Guns N' Roses was like basically F you.
GNR, man.
Well, we might be getting to that a little later, so
it was a big F you to everything, and that's kind of how I am. I identify with that. I can not always intentionally, but I can sometimes be a little contrarian and be like, well, that's what everyone else is doing. Okay, well, I'm
Axl Rose is banned from Toronto. Okay, I mean, tell me right now. Tell me somebody who's done something cooler than getting banned from the city of Toronto.
There's a music venue near where I live that there was a riot and they got banned from.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think it was the riot in St. Louis.
Well, since Lord of the Ree is exposing himself here first time, and he gets a big round of applause, and I don't know how do we pin this? I'm going to pin this. Oops, put user in timeout. No, I don't want to. I can't put myself in timeout.
You've been a naughty
boy. My moderator. Well, I put in the chat. This is Lord of the Ree's Rumble channel, so you can go check out some of his stuff. What do you got on your Rumble?
Yeah, well, on my Long Walks music, it's music that I've been working on. I've got some songs that were recorded mostly a long time ago that I'm in the process of re-recording and putting out newer versions of. There's a little teaser on there of a new song that I'm working on. And then on my other channel, that's just Lord of the Ree, it's mostly just some kind of gaming clips that I've been wanting to share with people. But I'm in the near future, hopefully, going to be a little bit more active on there. So if everything works out schedule-wise, you'll see more of that. But mostly what I want to do is the music, and anything else after that's kind of extra. But if you want to check it out, Long Walks Music on Rumble.
If we have a mod, can you pin that? I don't know how to pin it. All right, well, we'll get back to that. I mean, I think Expert, you've got you're up, and we're on number 7 for Expert.
Okay, so this album that came out, everybody's going to know it as one thing, but they re-released it in the 90s, and that's probably where I picked up later on. It was before, I don't know. Anyway, it was the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore concert series. So the first one they did was live at Fillmore East. But it's the 92. It's a extended version of it, and that's the one that's got Statesboro's Blues, and a Memory of Elizabeth Reed. But the song that really gets me is it's got One Way Out. I love that song, and yeah, it's about he's like he's with his woman, and his woman's man comes home, and he can't get out of the apartment. Out of the house.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you know that Allman Brothers is from Daytona Beach.
That's cool.
I mean,
I thought that was Skinnerd.
No, they're from Jacksonville.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
I went to Seabreeze High School, which is where the Allman Brothers played.
Oh, no way.
They went to my high school. I had teachers that would talk about the Allman Brothers. One of our secretaries in my office used to hang out at the Allman Brothers' house, at the mom's house where they all practiced, and hung out with Greg Allman.
Greg was a nut, man. Well, the song that came out of like Fillmore East, especially, and I want your opinion on this, Steve. Whipping Post.
I am all in on. And I'll tell you, I never liked the Allman Brothers. I didn't really listen to them. They were locals, and they were a bunch of potheads, and they were not their reputation. Their reputation in this. That was I remember my history teacher, McMurray was his name. I remember those guys. They were a bunch of potheads, and I never liked them. Never got into them. They were in 73. I graduated 85, so they're about 10 years before me. And never got into them, but I'd say a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I said, I'm from Daytona. I need to listen to these guys. And I was blown away. And Fillmore East is my favorite album by them, for sure. And I appreciate him. I also read Greg Allman's book. And I got to say, he is one of the most miserable people I've ever read about.
Oh, really?
His terrible autobiography. Very unlikable guy. And confirmed by my secretary, who used to hang out at their house, because he was just a cokehead, a disaster of a human being. His brother was really the anchor of that band. And when he lost his brother, he wasn't a band leader, and he lost a lot. I have so much to say about the Allman Brothers that I want to cut myself off.
Dwayne was a member of Cream, right? As well?
No. Dwayne played on Layla, on the slide solo on Layla, Eric Clapton's Layla, cool. And was very well respected as a slide player.
And he like 10 seconds of that song.
What's that?
Yeah.
I can play like 10 seconds of that song.
Okay, well, I'm gonna jump in. We got to keep it rolling here. So I could go on and on about Allman Brothers. Great album, great pick. Despicable human being, Greg Allman, as far as I'm concerned. I saw him in concert,
and what you just said explains great. Greg had the hardest time sitting at his keyboard. He had this red solo cup, man. I bet you that thing got refilled like 15 times during the concert.
Ouch.
Yeah, more. Not a good human. He was in his book. I've never seen anything quite like it. He wrote this autobiography, and in the back, the last. It's all about him and how great he is, and he played his song and this sort of thing. And it's called like My Biggest Regret, or so I forget what it's called, like My Cross to Bear. That's what he calls it. What his big cross to bear was? Is he had a fight with his brother Dwayne just before he got on his motorcycle drive over cocaine. So he regretted that he didn't share his cocaine with Dwayne before he got on his motorcycle. That's your big cross to bear. and then he goes on and on in the back of the book. So he goes on, he talks about his kids. So he's got all these kids by all these different, and he disses on every one of them. He dumps on them. Like,
that's terrible.
Oh, this guy, this kid here, he was just some waitress that I met. And how could you talk bad about your kids in a book? I couldn't believe it. He's like, he's so great, and these kids are just hanging on to me. These are your freaking kids. I'll tell you, I have no love lost for him. You think I'm joking? Go look. Go to a bookstore. Don't buy it. Go to a bookstore. Look at the back of the book and see if I'm lying. He disses every one of his kids, and I'm like, you are a bad father, and that's, to me, that means a lot. All right, let's stop here. I could go on. Although my assistant, one of my secretaries, she says that she picked up the phone in their house, and it's like, this is Cher. Is Greg there? Anyways. Here's the next one. So we have Screaming for Vengeance. That was my metal. And I was like, okay, I like metal. I especially like Priest. But then I really liked metal when I picked up this album, Iron Maiden Killers.
Hell yeah.
Now, this album is the album. Now, again, remember, I'm a bass player. And Steve Harris has the machine gun, And
amazing.
I'm like, look at that cover art. It's like, what the hell? This is evil.
You also have the best mascot of like any band ever.
Eddie, the evil axe murderer, right? And Wrathchild. And then Murders in the Rue, Genghis Khan, Innocent Exile, Killers, Prodigal Son. The Ides of March. I played every song by Iron Maiden from the first album through Power Slave. I could play on the bass. This was one big bass influence. Steve Harris, Sting, and Geddy Lee are my three big bass player influences. And Killers, when this came out, it upped the bar for metal. This was called the new wave of British heavy metal. Def Leppard was the other band who I saw on the High and Dry tour opening for Ozzy with Randy Rhoads on guitar over here in Daytona.
Randy
But-
Rhodes.
But but I wasn't as much a Def Leppard fan as I was a Maiden. When I talk about new wave of British heavy metal, and this was with Paul Di'Anno, their original singer too, who had this rough kind of gravelly, you know. And there's a lot of, I mean, I'm not saying this is their best album, although it's up there. But this is the album that changed my life. Because I mean, when I heard this, this was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be Steve Harris, right?
Mowing down bass.
Okay. So Lord, what you got? So that's my we're on number 7. Well, what are we on? I don't know. You go ahead. You go on whatever we're on.
Well, I think the next one that I would have to go with is probably one of the bands that kind of helped push me into more, I guess, abstract stuff, I guess you could say, was whenever I first heard Into the Blue from Electric Light Orchestra, which I have that album. Well, I had it, but I gave it to one of my friends.
All right. So I'm good. This is a good choice.
Because that was the first time I had ever heard like any kind of vocoder and like all the weird effects that he does. It really inspired me to start kind of branching out and experimenting with some stuff, some of which you'll get to hear hopefully very, very soon.
And where can we hear that? We can hear that on in the chat I just posted on your Rumble channel, Long Walks Music.
Yes, Long Walks Music. It's adequate.
Don't make
I don't
race up. Hey, I would say that album, the ELO album, that's got "Don't Bring Me Down," right?
Don't bring me down.
Yeah, that has. I actually thought about that one, put it on my list. I can't say it changed my life, but it has a very specific memory when I was with my Aunt Evelyn in New Jersey. And I remember watching it like on a late night TV. They had this concert with ELO, and that song came on. It was just cooking. I love that song. That's my favorite ELO song by far. So the album is actually called what?
It's called, I believe it's Into the Blue, right? I think that's what it's called. But
yes, you're excited. Well, you should send me an email. Maybe I'll throw
Dave ain't here. Dave ain't here. Dave ain't here.
Okay.
What?
I should like sell. We should sell people, like, you give me a big super chat or something and I'll let you on.
Wait, we don't do that? I thought that's the point.
I've never done that. Is that a thing? I don't know. It's just an idea.
Okay, I guess I'm not supposed to tell anyone, but that's how I got here.
No, you didn't.
All of my $2 Rumble rants.
Your $2. Yeah, I always hassle him. I was like, oh, Lord of the Rings with his $2 rant, but it's all in good fun. I'm happy. I'm glad.
$5. I'm in the $5.
Then you up it to $5, right? I said, oh, he's kicking
spoiling
it.
you a little bit.
I understand. He's a young kid and he's a starving musician who's now starting out his career. No expectations at all. I'm glad you're here watching. It's all good. Expert.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here. Valhalla's here.
He gets it.
All right.
He gets it.
So what you got, Expert? What's yours up?
My next one. I don't think it was an album. It is an album, but it wasn't intended to be. But not only do I love it, but I love every song to it. It is something I could watch and listen to over and over again. It is the Elvis Presley 1968 comeback special.
Oh,
did
you watch my stream recently?
I watch your streams every time I can. You're like, oh, sorry, I won't go into that. But why did you talk about it?
Yeah. That's right here. This one right here.
There we go.
Yeah, yes. This is my favorite Elvis, and Elvis is amazing.
Yes.
Here's another bit of trivia. My mom saw Elvis Presley at the Peabody in Daytona Beach in 1957.
Oh, that's wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
But this is comeback special 68. This is, I think, Elvis at his peak.
I think so too. I don't think it was I think the fact that it's called the comeback special is hilarious.
Yeah.
And if you watch it, to me, like that, it was like, how can you be cooler? There is no cooler.
You can't.
And like my favorite song is probably if it's not Santa Claus is Back in Town. Uh, yeah, I love that. And it's One Night with You. And he starts to do it and he messes up. He goes, I don't remember the song. He was like, I just
Yeah,
saw
I
my
know what you're
lip
saying.
one
He's like
time.
something wrong with my
Yeah,
lip.
I love it. I love it. And it just goes back his first song, That's All Right Mama. That
That's
is
all
just
right, mama.
that's such a rocking song, man.
Oh, I mean, talk about star power. The guy was just
He was
charisma.
an incredible entertainer, extremely nice guy. I've never heard a bad story about him. Even like
Voice,
Priscilla never said anything bad about him.
perfect voice, perfect voice. I mean,
Weird, but yeah.
Yeah.
incredible. He was the king for sure. All right, now
I think
I've got another
he kind of
selection.
invented being like a front man in a way. Like,
oh yeah.
before
Well,
him,
he just kind of blew everything away. When he came out, there was just
You
nothing like it.
know, Led
I've got
Zeppelin
it.
met with him and asked him to sing an album for him.
Well, there's a lot of stories. You know, there's a really
That
good
would've been
story
awesome.
about Elvis
Maybe.
in
That might have
Greg
been
Lake's
awesome.
autobiography. You know Greg Lake from Emerson, Lake and Palmer?
No.
He
Oh,
wrote
yeah.
an
Okay. Yes.
autobiography, and he talks about seeing Elvis. He saw him twice. Once, and it was interesting. Once it was, I think, both times in Vegas, but the first time he says it was a mind-numbing, mind-blowing universe experience. Right.
I
The
can
second
imagine.
time he says he was old and getting old, and it was tough. But anyways, okay. Next, we got to keep moving here. I
Moving
have a
on.
double choice. I have a choice between two because, like I said, it's hard. I don't want to steal thunder. There's the one that's I know which one's going to happen, but I gotta say, when I thought about life-changing albums, I thought about what is the actually, okay, upon you says this here, let me just say this. My mom was actually bringing her Betty Brooke, who is her niece, took her niece to the Elvis show. So it was my mom was pretty straight-laced. She liked, what is it? I don't know, stuff. Okay, here's the first album, and this got me into, I would say, kind of opened the door to prog, and it's Asia, the first Asia.
Okay.
And this album, it was more like heat of the moment. And now you find yourself in 82, right? I mean, 82, I was right there. I mean, I was growing up. It was when I was hitting all my music, and I listened to John Wetton. And of course, there's Time Again is great. Soul Survivor, Wildest Dreams, Cutting It Fine, Only Time Will Tell. All these are great hits. Now, at the time, I was kind of listening to Yes, and I was listening to these bands, but this album was kind of the one that came out that was all of my prog heroes. But this is very pop. This was their way to cash in on their prog chops. At the time, I listened to this a lot, and I loved Heat of the Moment. I loved the song, but it was more of a time. So I had to throw in a competitor to this one. So if I was going to say, like, change my life, this album was the first album that I related to that was current, that was, I would say, in the prog genre. The next one is Close to the Edge by Yes. Now, we talked about this one on some other streams, and I will note I have this in multiple versions, but the version to get is Close to the Edge, and this is what's the guy from the Porcupine Tree? What's the guy? Steve Wilson remix. The Steve Wilson remix of Close to the Edge. This album is my number one prog album of all time. I can listen to this over and over and over and over and never get sick of it. And I mean, it's like, how many albums can you say that about? I can, anytime I want, I can put on Close to the Edge, and it's like first time here. I love it. It detail and tricks and things. And it's amazing. All this, it takes you through this roller coaster. So I had this kind of prog competition. Both Steve Howe on guitar on both these albums. All right. So, but I gotta, and so I'd say this is the one that I would say changed my life in that it opened some doors and it was current. But when you talk about long-term effect, it's this one. So I'm going to go with Close to the Edge, yes, because I still to this day melt this album down. It's incredible. John Anderson, Bill Bruford, my favorite drummer of all time. Chris Squire, Rickenbacker player, great bass player. Rick Wakeman, Steve Howe. Close to the Edge. The Steve Wilson remix I would recommend if you're going to buy a CD of them, get the Steve Wilson remix. And I would say, because the original was great, and I was like, I gotta buy the Steve Wilson remix because I love this album so much. It's my favorite prog album of all time. And I got that album and I'm like, how can they make this any better? It got better. So there you go.
I love music. Yes.
There's that one. So that's my, okay. So we're at 5. We're in the top 5. We're moving. We're getting close, getting exciting. So what you got on? Yeah. See, Castro knows. Jacob Castro knows. Close to the Edge is a religious experience. It is.
Yep.
It is. I can't tell you. And I will, it's hard because like I said, it's hard to just dive into that right up front. You kind of have to lay the groundwork. You have to have the prog chops before you can listen to that album and truly understand its greatness. But once you're in the swimming pool and you're like, wow, this is nice, then you're like, okay, this is the top of the heap. All right, Lord of the Rings, what you got on number 5?
Number 5, well, it's one of those things kind of like you had earlier where it's technically an album, but it's also it's a soundtrack, but it's also a movie, is The Last Waltz by the band.
Okay, yeah.
And that was why that had such a big impact on me, was I was really starting to get into being more serious about playing guitar. I was probably about 19 years old, and I was playing guitar with my friend's dad, who used to be like a house band for a bar and out over near Beale Street. So he was in like the heart of where a lot of that stuff was going on. But he showed that to me and then ended up actually burning a DVD of it and giving it to me so I could take it home. And one of the reasons why it's great is because it's, of course, got the band, which is, they played for like Bob Dylan, a bunch of other people like that. But the way they did it, just the way the audio sounded live was amazing. And it had so many different famous musicians. You had Muddy Waters was there. I think Eric Clapton was on it. Just all kinds of people. Ringo was on it, I think. But one of the reasons why it was so big to me was because, again, I was taking guitar more seriously. So it just kind of opened in my eyes to how you can mix all kinds of different music together and come out with something even better. And you can just kind of take each of those little things, like a little bit from Neil Diamond and a little bit from Neil Young and a little bit of Eric Clapton, and mix it into like this thing that's unique, but everyone can still identify with because it's familiar at the same time. Yeah, it was a documentary. I think it was a Martin Scorsese film, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of people say that's one of the greatest concert films of all time, along with the Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense.
Talking Heads,
I love that one too. So, okay, interesting choice. So, Expert, what is your number 5?
I have down, and it's weird how I wrote down as the journey that I found it, because I love the Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones got me into Muddy Waters, and I was like, there's my blues blood. And Muddy Waters got me into the complete recordings of Robert Johnson.
Really?
He did like 25 songs. I still want to go to the crossroads of Mississippi. So, Steve, you ever want to do a road trip, man? Let me know.
Yeah, road trip Mississippi. Actually, I've been in that area.
Oh,
when I get it,
yes, up near Muscle Shoals.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we go to odd places for vacations. We just like to go to odd places and explore them. So I've explored that part of that area. So yours is Robert Johnson's Complete. Now that I can say I've got it. I know that everybody listens to it. I think there's a mystique about that. I'm not sure if I like it musically. We'll talk about it.
It is, all the history and everything else behind it. And I was going from Jacksonville to Myrtle Beach to see a friend, and the way I ended getting off all the interstate and everything. It was on the old country highways, and like the 2-lane roads, and it was getting dark. The moon's coming up. It's a clear sky. And I'm out there in the swamps and stuff of South Carolina, listening to the entire series. And I was like, man, you could feel the soul. You could feel the blues there because it looked like the areas like where Robert Johnson grew up and stuff. And it was just, I don't know, man. It just anything when you can relate it back to a car trip and you can say I listened to every song and have the emotional attachment
Right.
to it,
Well,
that's got to be great.
This is part of it, changed your life. And this is the thing, like that album there opened your mind to something that wasn't there before. And it may not be something like you listened to as your favorite or anything like that, but maybe it opened a door of awareness, of spirituality, of enlightenment, of transcendence, something that brought you something new that wasn't there before. And that's what we're talking about. And let's clarify what we're talking about, because I'm ranking them in date order. So I'm kind of going forward, like from my oldest to the newest. Ree here, you're doing it more in like, has it impacted you? So you're saying like from the least to most impactful, and experts kind of throwing things out there, kind of throwing mud on the wall, guessing in a random way, no order. So let's just clarify, because I see there's some chatters that might be upset with one of my picks coming up. Let's just leave it at that. But not this one, because I just did a whole stream on this one. And if you guys and I have, it's another choice that I have, and it's between the Pat Metheny group, Off Ramp, and Still Life Talking. So I did a whole stream on ranking the Pat Metheny group albums, or at least talking about it. Did you watch that?
I was in the chat hanging out.
Yeah.
I remember.
And I've been burning it up since I was gonna like listen to it before I did the thing, but then it's like I started listening. I'm like, I know all this stuff. I know what I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna change my mind because I listened to it again. So I did the stream, but now I've just been listening to this stuff, and it's great. But here's the problem I have. I have this album. Okay, we've got Off Ramp, which is the earlier album, which is the first Pat Metheny album that I listened to. And I'd say one of his most rock and roll albums. You listen to this if you're into metal and rock and roll, and some of the stuff in here, like Off Ramp, is some of the guitar. If you're like into guitar, this is just heavy. Now, it's smooth, it's jazz, but it's a rock and roll. It's like a Mahavishnu orchestra sort of thing, right? All right, so this is phenomenal. This is when he first starts using his synth guitar all over the place, right? This album here, and I'm going to have to, this is the thing. Which one? Now, this is probably my favorite Pat Metheny album. But this is the first one I listened to when I really got into him. So, but as far as impact, I'm going to have to go with Still Life Talking, because this was the album I listened to in college. There was a mood there. This album has a very, like a calming, meditative, kind of smooth mood that's all over this album. When I listen to it, it takes me to a place. And it's interesting because I do have a particular memory and an association with some of the stuff on this album. Yes, that's true. But I also have, when I put it on now, it's relevant to the way I feel today in certain times. The mood that this album brings is still relevant even to my heart today, even though I have a memory. It's a little odd to say that, but so I can say this album changed my life in that it connects to a particular mood in my life that is that's present there occasionally, and it's wonderful. Pat Metheny group. I think it's his best album. Last Train Home, everybody knows, but I mean, the ones I talk about are 6-8, So Make It Secretly Begin, Third Wind. Great stuff. So that's my pick. So that's what I'm going to go with. What you got there, Ree? Number 4. This is in impacting order. Mine's in date order. Yours is impact order. So what is fourth most impactful album that changed your life?
Well, kind of going from what you were talking about a little bit ago with your prog, mine's a little bit heavier on the prog side, from a little bit heavier than and I'm kind of Between the Buried and Me is already in that genre, but they were more of like a prog metal. My first foray into gent, so to speak, would be the album One by the band Tesseract. And
look at you, Tesseract. Yeah. Really? You're going to pick a Tesseract album?
Well, I mean,
holy cow.
But that album was the first, and it's kind of funny because it kind of helped, it pushed me to expand my musical kind of talents, because I was listening to it and I was like, man, all these tones are great. The guitar tone is absolutely crushing. And my friend was like, you want to know something? I was like, what? He's like, that's actually a 5-string bass. So I was like, well, I guess I got to get a bass now. And so it kind of helped not only push me into that more complex, heavier side of music, but also to kind of push myself to learn something, because I
Now,
was
are
like,
you talking about like Polaris or Sonder?
oh, those are newer ones, which Sonder is a good album, but the album is
Arati? Arati, or what's the name of the album? Because Tesseract is a very if you like animals as leaders.
They're a little bit, I like animals. Animals as leaders is a little different.
It's hard to explain. Is it kind of gent metal, musical music metal, I'd say, but it's very interesting music. Tesseract is extreme high musicianship.
They don't have a lot of screaming.
Give me an album name, Bill, because I this is an album. Which album changed?
It's One. The album's called One.
One? I'm going to get that one. I don't have that one.
Which
you just gave me a purchase.
My favorite Tesseract album is probably Altered State, but the one that had the biggest impact on me was One, because that was the first one of theirs that I heard. And it was just the first time, because up until then, most of the metal that I would listen to, it had mostly screaming the whole time. Some singing, but mostly screaming the whole time. So when I heard Tesseract, I was like, one, like, how do they know what they're playing? Because I was like, I've never really listened to that genre before. And my friend was like, yo, you got to hear this. And so it was just the complexity, and also the tone made me want to learn how to play bass. And then it was just, again, my first kind of experience with how do they do that. It's like they're playing math and music at the same time, and it was just like the first kind of that really challenged me as a musician, because like, you can play classic rock stuff, most of it's in 4/4, poppy stuff, most of it's in 4/4, so you got some 3/4 stuff every once in a while, maybe some 4/6. But our first experience with polymeters, you never forget it.
Very good. They're perfect. Well, I never would have picked that one, but that's an impressive pick. Lord of the Ree I think you win the prize for the stream for the
competition.
But I'm going to give you the warm fuzzy for that one. All right, Expert. So see if you can up that one, Mr. Expert. What's your 4?
The Doors, LA Woman.
Okay.
Ooh.
LA Woman. Now that's an interesting choice, LA Woman. Because the Doors, I looked at the Doors. That's another one I looked at.
What's your choice of the Doors? Now, this isn't a choice, though. If you had to say one of their albums affected you, what would you?
See, that's why I didn't pick it, because I can't say that. I do have an identification with a memory, and I like it a lot, and I listen to it, and but I can't say it opened any doors. It didn't change my life. But it's an interesting. So why would you pick? Why did the Doors' LA Woman change your life?
Well, okay, so my choices were all based on I played guitar. I grew my hair long, and I thought that's the best way to pick up chicks, right? And yeah, that's what we all do. And by the way, John Cougar Mellencamp played guitar. It's an autobiography song. But so everybody loves the Doors, right? And it's like the Doors movie, which I've never seen. And it's like the greatest hits, where that's probably their best albums, their greatest hits.
Right? Yeah, that's what I was going to reach for.
That's
but then I'm like, that greatest hits album, most impactful. It just didn't. I didn't grab for it. But you say LA Woman had an impact on you.
LA Woman, because like listening to music. Okay, remember, like I said, I liked surf music. Right? That's very happy, very cheerful. I don't like grunge, Seattle, depression music. I mean, that just it puts me. I might as well.
You want to shoot yourself, don't it?
Yeah, or get some heroin.
Or get shot. What?
I
Well, no, let's.
hear you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I really like Alice in Chains. I love Alice in the Chains, but I can only take so much of it before I start getting depressed.
Right. That's and so I lived in the Northwest too for a while, and I was like, it rains all the time, man. It messes with you. Anyway, but LA Woman was that album that it has to me more of a dark tone, and it ends with Riders on the Storm. And that's like it's like you're listening to it, it's like you feel like you're gonna be in a bar. When I heard it, I was like,
Yes,
I've never been in a
yes.
bar, but it's like I feel like I should be in a bar. And I'm like, is this a sad song? Is it what's going on here? Is it I felt like like people always say they love the Eagles and Desperado, I was like, Rider of the Storm would be more of that cowboyish type song, for me. I don't know. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
there's
love it.
something very moody about it.
Yeah, you know how many times I've fallen asleep to that? I mean, it's just
It's the thunder and the rain, man. It's the
love
thunder
it.
and the rain.
I love it. So yeah, it's just that album. It's different. I can't name any. I mean, all my favorite Doors songs, they're not on there. But again, it goes into albums used to always be about they told a story and stuff. And I appreciate that about the musician, and I try to get into it.
Okay, well, good choice. I'm not. I think it's an interesting.
I've never been in a bar when I listen to the album, dude.
It's hard to explain. These are not. We're not saying these are the greatest albums of all time, or even our favorites within the genre, or favorites within the band itself. We're saying these are 20 albums that changed our lives, and for some reason they have a musical connection, they have a memory connection, something like that. And I can't argue with it, right? And I got it. All right, This is a 3-album choice. And I'll explain this. Again, going back to our metal, the Gosney, the metalhead. So if we left it off at Killers, right? Which was this album. And so that was the new wave of British heavy metal. And I heard this and I'm like, this is something else. So I was way into Maiden, everything through Power Slave. I was all about Maiden, it's metal, and that's all there is to it, right? And then I went to college and I met my buddy Greg, and he said, check this out. And he puts on this record. And I remember this record started saying, the double kick in the middle of Master of Puppets, which is like so heavy and sloggy and just like, instead of upshifting, they downshifted and you just like decelerate, and then he starts doing this slow double kick, faster. Right? I'm like, what in the hell is this? Right. So it's like this album now. And so I will just say it started with hearing Master of Puppets and that double kick. And I'm just like, because I heard the first part, it's like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And then that downshift into that double kick start, Master. I'm like, whoa, this is great. So that was my first,
different than mine, though.
First influential into thrash. Now, that being said, then of course we have old Headbangers Ball. And I'm going to go here. We got Megadeth, Peace Sells, and the video, Wake Up Dead. I mean, I would stay up all night just to see that video. Because if you watch, like, that video had impact. Like, you talk about, like, so I'm into thrash, Metallica, right? But Megadeth upped Metallica in the heavy department by another whole gear. And Wake Up Dead is like, holy cow, that song, it just opens up full throttle and then it downshifts. I mean, that song is great. I mean, if you want to see an unbelievably great thrash song, go watch the video for Wake Up Dead. All right, so that's what I'm saying.
Megadeth is objectively better than Metallica.
Isn't Megadeth Dave Mustaine?
Yeah, Dave Mustaine.
Yeah, he's a bass player, right, for Metallica.
No, the guitar player, the bass player is Dave.
Guitar player, sorry. Yeah,
Cliff Mustaine needs to get Dave Ellefson back. I don't care what you say. It's ain't Megadeth without Dave Ellefson. It's Junior. It's the two Daves, Dave Mustaine and Dave Ellefson. Without Ellefson, I'm sorry, it's Dave. It's a Dave Mustaine fronted cover band of Megadeth. It's my opinion, but
that's fair.
Dave Ellefson, Dave Mustaine thinks he's great. He's a great songwriter. He created thrash. Yes, I agree. All that. He's a phenomenal, great songwriter. Yes, but he's a dickhead. And he needs Dave Ellefson in there to keep that ship balanced, to make it a band.
He needs Marty Friedman too. I mean,
well, I get it.
Just...
There's been a lot of guitar players, and that's where we're going to go with the most album that changed my life, because I was into metal, and I started liking thrash, and Wake Up Dead was great, and this album and the and Master of Puppets, but the album that changed my life was Rust in Peace.
Yeah,
because this is their fourth Megadeth album. The fourth Megadeth album is Marty Friedman's first album, and there's Dave Ellefson there. And this took Megadeth to a whole nother level. This was like this. Most Megadeth people say this is their best album, and it's blistering, front to back, incredible musicianship. Marty Friedman on guitar, every song great, so intense, such tight musicianship. And I actually got to
see, man, Tornado of Souls guitar solo, considered the greatest thrash
guitar solo of all time. And I got to see Marty Friedman actually in a club recently, and he played in a band. But I also got to see Marty Friedman with Megadeth on the Rust in Peace tour in Daytona in a club called Finky's.
I'm really jealous. What's funny is Dave now, he just looks like a red-headed Ted Nugent, but Marty Friedman looks almost exactly the same. Yes. And that's because he kept himself youthful by destroying other guitar players. He was so good. Marty Friedman was so good at guitar that he had to leave America to find a suitable challenger. He literally had to move to Japan.
Molten Salt is bombing us over here in the chat. Look at him. He's bombing us. Okay, Molten Salt, I challenge you. Okay, we're talking.
Your opinion.
I'm going date order too, and I understand you guys have all your fancy guitar playing intricacies, but I'm talking about is albums that changed my life. And when I was growing up and this album came out and I got to see them live at Marty Friedman's guitar, there was nothing like it. It upped the bar for metal and thrash, and that album is still one of the greatest metal albums of all time.
Metallica would be good if Kirk Hammett could get out of the same scale and could do anything more than just pentatonic riffs and use a wah pedal.
Yeah. Although I saw Metallica recently over in Daytona at the big festival. I'd never seen Metallica before, and I said I got to go see them. They're headlining here in Daytona. I got to see them. They were really tight. I got to say they put on a great show. To me, it was always Megadeth, Anthrax, Metallica,
Anthrax.
In that order. Yeah. But now I'd say it's Anthrax, Megadeth, Metallica, because I'm very upset with Mr. Mustaine. I really did not like their latest album. I really did not like him firing Dave Ellefson, and his attitude. I've heard his attitude in his mouth and his lies enough, and I am done with Dave Mustaine. So I'm a Mustaine super fan. I've seen Megadeth probably 10 times, but I'm over it. So Anthrax is now my number one.
You got to separate the art from the artist.
I know, but they put out they have such a catalog. They have such a strong catalog front to back, and that new album sucks. Sorry.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
All right, Ree, you're up. You're number 3.
My number 3. Okay. We'll go with. Now, I was talking earlier kind of about how I used to be kind of more into the punk kind of stuff, and when people think punk stuff, they usually think, people my age usually think of stuff like Blink-182 or Sum 41 and stuff like that. But my first exposure to the real punk music was actually a band called MXPX.
MXPX? Punk? Okay.
And the album,
my son loves punk, by the way. And Danielle, if you're still
Life
here.
in general. There's something about the album. When I found it, it was when I was working with my dad. I was 15 years old, and I just happened upon this. We were working at this grocery store. I used to help him do like the floors and stuff at grocery stores, and we were doing this one that was right next to this Christian bookstore. And I was like, well, after we're done, can I go over there and get a CD? And he was like, well, if they're still open, sure. So I went over there, and they had this whole section of like quote unquote Christian rock music, which I thought, oh, this will be great, right? And I go over there and I was like, what's this? This looks dumb, because the art looked stupid. So I picked it up and I started listening to it, and I was like, wow, this is actually really good. So it kind of got me into the more alternative punk side of music, and that's whenever it kind of started to really want to get to, see, Danielle knows MXPX is a Christian band, and they're still writing music. They had a live concert on YouTube just a few weeks ago. It was great. But
what's the name of the album?
Life in General.
Life in General. I'm going to get this. You got another one that I'm going to buy. General. This sounds, and mainly my son is really into punk. He's into hardcore punk mostly, but he loves punk.
Hardcore punk, it's more of like it's kind of in the vein of like happy punk, kind of like more like Dead Milkmen kind of stuff, but like with electric guitars and a little bit louder. And their stuff still holds up from back. That I think that album is actually as old as I am. I was born in 92, and I think that album came out in like 94 or something like that. But they've been around for a really long time, underrated. Not a lot of people know who they are, but
okay, well now we do, and I'm gonna buy that one. So I've got to buy that one. I've got to buy 2 Tesseract albums.
All the Tesseract albums, Steve, all of them.
I have the other 3 I named. I have.
Good man.
Okay, good. All right, well, so Expert, what's your number 3? I have a little pile here of honorable mentions. So just so if you feel like we've run out, I'm going to give you an opportunity. I have a pile. We'll just go through them quick. But
after listening to you two talk about Metallica and Megadeth and Anthrax and all that stuff, I'm beginning to think my next album, it's going to make me sound like I might as well just say Taylor Swift 1987, but it's actually it is Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic.
Oh yeah, okay.
I love me some Aerosmith. And actually, speaking of Taylor Swift, that specific album, I think his name's I always get the 2 confused. There's Bryan Adams and there's Ryan Adams. And
Bryan Adams is the Canadian rocker.
Yeah, the younger guy, he did a cover of the 1987 album by Taylor Swift, but the way he did it, it sounds like a Tom Petty album.
Oh, cool.
It's really good.
Yeah,
well,
Aerosmith
Toys.
But yeah, Aerosmith Toys. What do you think about that one, Steve?
Oh, I love that. That's good old classic rock, you know. Again, it's rock, and it's probably, I'd say, probably Aerosmith's best album.
Well, that's what a lot of people say. What's the Pump later on with the
albums in the order they were released? Like the earlier they came out, the better they were.
Aerosmith.
Well,
well, Aerosmith, I liked them in their drug and big days. You know, once, and then they disbanded and they lost all their money and snorted it all up their noses, and then they came back as a polished and produced band, and just never had quite the fire that I liked in the early years, which was kind of the Guns N' Roses thing. You know, I mean, it's like the early Guns N' Roses was raw and rough, and I loved it. And then the more polished they got, the more I thought it was a joke.
Well, you know what gets me about Aerosmith is the guitar player, Joe Perry.
Yeah.
He is extremely difficult to try to copy. I bet you the one song I've played more than any other song ever, and always tried to play it. Everybody I've ever known, try to play it, is Walk This Way. And it's such a simple riff. But man, if you don't have Joe Perry's fingers, you can't make it sound right.
Nope.
It's me. And you have Walk This Way, I think, is that high school song. It's the coming of age song like everybody can relate to. If you go to high school, if you're a guy and you graduate high school jamming out to Walk This Way, I'm sorry for you. But then it goes into Sweet Emotion.
Was Brad Whitford the original guitar player? I thought Brad Whitford played that riff originally.
I don't think they're listed as lead or rhythm guitar. I think they're just both listed as guitar. But Joe Perry always becomes the frontman because him and Steven Tyler
twins, and he has the look.
Yeah, he's pretty.
He's kind pretty, of in the background.
Yeah, he's the prettiest member of Aerosmith. But
Roses, their rhythm guitar player, Izzy.
Which one? They had so many. Oh yeah, Izzy,
the original.
Yeah. The OG, the hat and glasses. Yeah. He was actually a huge inspiration to me more than Slash was, because I was like, leads and stuff are cool, but
he was a great songwriter.
Lay there on. You got to have a solid rhythm and and he just had like the best clean tone I think I've probably ever heard.
Yeah, Izzy's awesome. So is Gilby Clark, who came in after him. That's another one.
Buckethead.
But with the Toys in the Attic, the one I want to say is that he's got sweet emotion on it. And again, I think as a bass player, that's got to get to you. And it's such
I love the
deep
title track. I mean, toys.
yeah, they're screaming at you. And
Yeah,
then it's like big 10-inch comes on, you're like, what are they talking about here? And then you find out it's a record. You're like, what's a record?
What's a record?
All right, that's for you. All right, I got my next one. That was a okay. Here's another choice that I have, and this is again, it's albums that changed my life, and this is going to be. I'll give you the first one is a little more straightforward, although this is my prog self coming out. King Crimson's Discipline. Now, this album is very unusual. Elephant Talk, Frame by Frame, Mate Kudasai, Indiscipline, Thela Hun Jinjit, The Sheltering Sky, and Discipline. Now, if you've never heard King Crimson, it's hard to like pin them down. They're a prog band. Let's just leave it at that, because they have so many different eras and generations and gesticulations. But this is the album that I first got into King Crimson, and it was a jaw-dropping, because I'm thinking I'm listening to metal and shredders and these guitar players like Yngwie, and I'm thinking they're the greatest guys of all time. And then these guys come out with this, and it's like, okay, this isn't necessarily fast, but it's so ridiculously obscure and difficult. I mean, I don't think Yngwie could play this stuff. I mean, you're all listening like the shredders. Okay, they got that, but this was so out there. I mean, I'd say that Bill Bruford, who's the drummer here, who's my favorite drummer of all time, came up with. He said that the 3 albums that they did in a row, this was the first, and there was Beat, and then 3 of a Perfect Pair, was the best thing he ever did musically in his entire career. And he was the drummer for On Close to the Edge. So this album opened my eyes to King Crimson. So changing up. Now here's another oddball out there album, and it's Andy Summers and Robert Fripp called I Advance Masked. Now I hear that they're going to release this and another album called Bewitched, which they did together. Now, Andy Summers is the guitar player for the Police, and Robert Fripp is the guitar player for the King Crimson. And these 2 albums together, this one being the first, are so odd and so mechanical and so guitar-oriented, and just them with like a drum machine playing 2 guitars with synth guitars. That's awesome. Very unusual stuff. But when I listened, it opened my mind, because first of all, I love Andy Summers. I saw Andy Summers very recently on tour, and this is sort of and they're going to re-release these, like I said. So this opened my mind, but I've kind of got to go back and say I'm going to pick King Crimson Discipline, because when I say this opened the door for me in King Crimson, and I got to defer to Bill Bruford. I also have seen King Crimson multiple times. Unbelievable band, very unusual. Nobody is like King Crimson, and it's funny because I was telling my son, he loves King Crimson too, and I guess a lot of the young kids out there really like King Crimson and are influenced by him. And I was like, if I was listening to this back in the day, and I was a fan, and we had our little club of fans that that filled the arena and listened to King Crimson, and you said to me, pick a band that would be influential in 30 years on the young kids, I would never in a million years pick King Crimson, right?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because the band I picked earlier, Between the Buried and Me, they have an album called The Anatomy of, which is basically an album version of kind of what we're doing. It's all covers of songs that were done by bands that had a huge impact on them. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, yes, they are great.
Yes, I did. I have heard, although they've got so many records, it's hard to sort them all out.
The newest one, the one with the Gila Monster. Gila Monster.
Yeah, I just bought that.
Yeah, but what are we talking about? Yeah, but no, Between the Buried and Me, they have a cover of 3 of a Perfect Pair. The whole album is just covers. They did Blackened by Metallica, Cemetery Gates by Pantera. I think they did a Blind Lemon song too.
And I think I might have done a King Crimson like album review a while back. I think I did. And I mean, like I put Discipline and those 3 albums there in a row, along with Red, But when I talk about, albums that changed my life, and I might pick this as my favorite, but there's so much great King Crimson, but this one here definitely changed my life. So that's what the list is about. And it's in order to, we're talking about, here I am, a thrash guy thinking, oh, these thrash blows everybody away, and then this album comes out. I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm stupid. So Ree, what is your second? Number 2, we're getting down to the end. We're getting to the close end here.
Well, so you already picked a Pink Floyd album.
I put The Wall, but that's a personal, I did it for the reasons stated, it has a memory. It opened my eyes to Pink Floyd and, that whole genre. So
yeah,
because you can pick it. We don't have to double up.
Decide if my 1 and my 2 keep going back and forth.
Okay.
But since we already talking about it, and my first time hearing it isn't the format that I have it now. The first time I heard it was a live recording of it. I believe it was in Berlin, and that is Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here."
Ooh, yes.
Which is also my favorite Pink Floyd album, but it's definitely one of the ones that had the biggest impact on me because kind of just having that experience, that musical experience. It was the first time where an album was really like something more than just listening to music. It was, I popped in the cassette tape, I shut out all the windows and everything, and it was just laying on my couch, just listening to it. It was the first time I ever had like an experience listening to music. Just when Shine On You Crazy Diamond starts coming on. And then it gained kind of more of an impact on me because my friend who showed it to me, who ended up also being one of my bandmates for a while, he ended up passing away. So the song, as much as the album, both "Wish You Were Here" just have such an intrinsic meaning to me because, I wish he was, and we all have someone that we wish was here. So,
and I think I did a Pink Floyd review stream, and "Wish You Were Here" was my number 1. I think that's their best album. If I was going to pick one, that would be my kind of. Animals is also up there because it's not played out. So I'm not saying this is again James albums that change your life. So, and I can see it. I mean, "Wish You Were Here." If I was going to say go buy a Pink Floyd album, buy "Wish You Were Here." That's the one that.
Because one of the songs, the first song that I ever wrote, which I don't have a recording of it yet, because it's one of those songs that you still kind of tweak for a long time till you're absolutely happy with it. But the first song I wrote that was before I even ever heard this album, and I was playing it at a coffee house, and my friend this was before I joined a band with him, but my friend who eventually became my bandmate was like, yo, that song sounds almost exactly like this. And he played me the song "Wish You Were Here." And I was like, yo, I've never heard this before. This is amazing. And so, but it was just had a really big impact on me. Also kind of pushed me more towards the experimental side. And the more wanting to get interested in, well, I can play guitar, but I can make my guitar sound like this. I can make my guitar do that. And it was just a big, I think, stepping stone for me music wise. And then also just the album itself is such an experience, and it's so deep. And it's just, like I said, we all have someone that we wish was here. And so I think it's something that you hear it and you can identify with almost instantly.
So here's Lord of the Ree's Rumble, Long Walks Music. And Lord of the Ree, this is his first live stream he's ever been on. And he's a frequent viewer and chatter. He's followed me for a long time, and I'm very honored that he would choose to come on my stream as his first live stream. And he is a musician. We've bonded over beautiful guitars like the Paul Reed Smith here. Here, let's display the Paul Reed Smith. Share our interest in guitars and music. Right, beautiful. See the bird inlays here. The bird inlays, such a great instruments.
Paul Reed's great.
Mine are just the white. Yours are the mother of pearl, aren't they?
Yes, that's. I'm a snob, I gotta say. I'm more of a collector. I basically have decided that I'm a collector, not a player. But I still have very strong opinions. I used to sell guitars in guitar stores and stuff.
That's
So
cool. I used to want to have a job at a guitar store.
it was a great job, no doubt. So anyways, check out Lord of the Rees music. And Expert, you're up. You've got a number 2.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said Led Zeppelin earlier and Zeppelin 2 because that was gonna be on here. But you know what? You made me start thinking about it, and an album that not many people have heard of. It is David Coverdale and Jimmy Page, Coverdale Page, and
Oh, interesting one.
David Coverdale is the lead singer of Whitesnake, and the album sounds very. It's like kind of a combination of both. I mean, David Coverdale has a great voice that I never realized in anything else he did. But the album, it's one of those. It's very bluesy, very influential. But it's very hard. You know, a lot. It's great guitar, and it's like from the first song on it, "Shake Your Tree," all the way to the last song, "Whisper a Prayer for the Dying." And that is, it's weird. It's one of those you can turn the lights down, get a your favorite libation, and hopefully you have a female that's interested in you or whatever you're into, in the room at the same time. And it is a wonderful, wonderful album. And yeah, check that one out. So
I don't know how to pin stuff here. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm a complete
on
novice here.
the three dots on the right side
but
where you of whatever you want to pin.
yeah, Whitesnake. People need to know that the original Whitesnake album was mostly John Sykes, and John Sykes, after that original Whitesnake album, David Coverdale fired his entire band. So Sykes wrote that album.
Oh wow!
And played everything on that album, and his smoking guitar, that big Whitesnake album that everybody knows, was written by John Sykes. And then Coverdale fires the whole band. And so all the people in the videos and all the people on the tour were not the people that played on that record. And now
crazy.
here's the trivia question for you musicians out there. And this is already Gosney and his obsessions. What did Sykes do, John Sykes do after that Whitesnake album, after he got absurdly fired by Coverdale? He formed a band called Blue Murder. Now, who was in Blue Murder? Tony Franklin, the bass player. That's Tony Franklin turned down the gig in Pink Floyd to replace Roger Waters as the bass player in order to join John Sykes in the Blue Murder group.
Wow.
Well, he actually says that he had pre-committed. He had committed to play with John Sykes and Blue Murder.
Before he got out.
Then David Gilmour called him and said, "Would you join Pink Floyd?" And he said, "I'm already committed."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm a Tony Franklin fanboy. The older I get, the more I appreciate him because he's such a nice guy and an interesting guy, and he's lived a fascinating life in the middle of all these great musicians. And
that sounds awesome.
Okay, man. So ready for number 1? I got my number 1 here. We're ready to go around for number 1. Now, I'm gonna let Lord of the Rees and Expert guess my number 1. And it's and I'm going by most recent. So I'm going to say the most recent band that has impacted me, because that stopped. I mean, this is pretty much college and a little after college. And, after that, your musical tastes are kind of formed. But there's a band that I have recently opened my eyes and has impacted me. And it affected me in a way that's really opened my eyes in a pair of music. And it changed my life. Now, what band might that be? Ginger.
Right?
What a surprise.
Yeah,
I know, it's hard to believe, but I'm going to say, and it's fascinating because I never liked, because I like great metal vocalists like Rob Halford and the Metal God and Bruce Dickinson and screamers and like great vocals, right? And all the metal bands, I'd hear and I never liked that. I'm like, oh, this is a guy, they couldn't find a good singer, so they got this guy to growl. That was okay. Well, you'll have your say. Okay, that was my opinion. And so I never listened. Anytime growling, I'd just say, I don't want to hear it. Cookie Monster vocals weren't my thing.
Well, it depends on how you define growling, I guess.
Okay, well, whatever you want to call that, not singing, right? Metal singing that they're like, I didn't like that.
There's a lot of them that sound like crap. There's a lot of like death metal vocalists that sound like crap, but the ones that don't definitely kind of stand out.
Well, you'll have your say. This is what we're talking. Let me say. So I remember the very moment when I was like, okay, I've changed my mind, because somebody sent me this video of Ginger, which was the Pisces video that everybody listens to, and said, what do you think? And my reaction was, well, I don't like the growling vocals, right? That was, I said, it's amazing band. I see they're great musicians, but I don't like the vocals. But then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, but there's a good band here, you know? And so I said, this is going to be worth some time. So I did a couple more clicks, and I'm like, you know, the band is just kick rear end. The band is just out there. I mean, the music is spectacular. So I'm like, okay, but the singer, but you know, sometimes I like the singer and sometimes I didn't. So I said, I'm going to listen to him live. I'm going to listen to this live album, which is Ginger live in Melbourne. And because sometimes you can get a feel for a band by watching their live show. And so I put this show on, and I'm just going to watch the show because the band is smoking, and I'll listen to the singer. And it was rolling along. About 20 minutes in, they hit this song called I Speak Astronomy. So go look up I Speak Astronomy live in Melbourne. It's about 20 minutes into their video concert. And it's this it's just kick. And then it just goes and does this arc, and she's growling, and then she hits this high note. There's a break, and she hits this high note, and it just belts. And I'm just like, this is great. I mean, it was like, then I was like, I get it. It was funny because I can pinpoint the time. I was like, I get it. I get this song. And then I liked everything. I mean, it was like, okay, now that entire band, the entire catalog was great. And everything from the first album to the present album, and every song and all the lyrics and all the vocals. And it's like all of a sudden it opened those gates. And so it changed my life. Now since I've been able to listen to that, I've now been able to listen to like Meshuggah, and I've been able to listen to some other growlers, I should say, and understand and get it. And like, okay, now it doesn't bother me as much. And the band that did that for me was Ginger. They allowed me to do that. So this is and I'd say, I'm going to pick live in Melbourne, I Speak Astronomy, which is number 6. And especially in the last, like, it's like, do yourself a favor and watch I Speak Astronomy off of live in Melbourne. It's on video, great album, live album. Just saying. All right. That's my rant. You guys like that's a legitimate Gosney rant. Now, I have a bunch of best of or best runners up, but Ree, go ahead. You're tuned to go. Your number 1. Now yours is going to be that's the most recent life-changing band. For you, it's going to be the biggest.
The biggest impact, yeah. So I think, and it's weird because I don't know if it became my favorite album also because it was the album that had the most impact on me, mostly like musically, and like kind of helped me find my way writing deeper lyrics and feeling more vulnerable, is a band called As Cities Burn, and the album is called Come Now Sleep.
As Cities Burn. Are you going to give me another one to buy? What is it called?
Come Now Sleep.
Okay, I'll check it out.
And it's one of my first experiences with someone being so vulnerable, and again being able to take their experiences and putting it into music as a way of therapy, but also a way to kind of show people like, hey, you might be going through this terrible thing. I went through that terrible thing, but I'm still here, and here's how I coped, or here's a way to, or, you know, it's just kind of inspiring the things that people go through and the ways that music can kind of push you through to the other side, which is, like you were saying earlier, it's kind of like a cosmic thing. It's like kind of beyond our understanding of how it's just there. and it's always able to kind of pull you through. And they're another Christian band, quote unquote, but one of the biggest things to me is it's kind of a weird mix between like the post-hardcore music and almost blues music because of the way that he plays, the guitar tone, and then just kind of what the songs are about is very bluesy, but it's presented in a more post-hardcore fashion, and it's just beyond anything I've ever heard. Cody Bonnet, the guitar player, lyricist, vocalist, I got to meet him actually. I was seeing Under Oath and As Cities Burn at the House of Blues, I believe, in Dallas. And hands down, best concert I've ever been to. Just the energy was off the walls. Under Oath, I almost picked them for my number one. And I almost wanted to go with it just because Steve was saying about the growly vocals. But no, my most impactful favorite album ever, Come Now Sleep, As Cities Burn. It's almost kind of got a Pink Floyd-y aspect to it with the atmospheric kind of aspect of the music, kind of like almost to like the post-rock side. But just the way they blend everything together is just so creative, and it's so deep, and it's just everything they write about is like, hey, this thing happened, but I'm still here. And it's a huge inspiration, not just musically, but philosophically. And a lot of their songs are kind of him struggling with his faith and kind of like, well, I went through this thing. Is God really here? And then at the end, it's like, well, if he wasn't here, then how else was I possibly able to get through this? Because there's no way I could have done it by myself. And I've definitely been there. I think we've all been there and experienced something like that. And it's just a good way to pull yourself through something.
Nice. Very good. So, okay, that's an interesting. Another one that I will need.
I'm getting rambly now.
You've given me some homework, and I'm pleased. Thank you. That's why I did. I do these things, and I bring people on, and I want to hear what you say because I like opening my mind. I like albums changing my life. Music does change your life, and so I take recommendations and I write them all down so that I can go back and do some listening and see what I like. You never know. You might find the band that changes your life. So thank you for sharing. Lord of the Ree, you're amazing. And everybody, of course, if you want to check out Lord of the Ree's music, there's the little thingy.
.com/C/longwalksmusic.
Long Walk. There you go. And thank you very much. I'll put it one more time in the chat if you want to cut and paste, guys. So
thank you.
Yeah, so we got Dave here. So I said Dave needs to come on next time. He says he'd give me a boomer perspective. Don't say Country Joe.
I've never been on the street before in my life. Come on, that's not an excuse.
Yeah, see there, Ree's doing it. We're just kind of having fun. We're just talking guys talking about music. And see, people don't know. Like I can talk about music all day. I love music, and it's just. This is what I see. People want me to talk about law. What's your latest thing on the trial over here? I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about music. So, okay, expert, what you got? So number one, now this is all random. Is number one right? For you also random, or did you save up your one that you really impacted you?
So it's an album that affected my life, right? So it all goes to the first song I heard of because I'm not a fan. I wasn't a fan. And I was dating my wife. And I was always trying to impress her because I didn't think she was very impressed, and we were out and a song started playing and I stood up, I said, come on, let's dance. And that song just kept, just hitting. It's like, why is this song coming on now? It's like, I don't even know when it came out and all this other stuff. And it ended up being, I am getting their album. I love everything about it. The album it reminds me so much of Her and I, my courtship of the White Rabbit. And we saw them in concert a couple of times, and it's absolutely amazing. They're so good.
And what was the band in the album?
The band is Train. The song was Soul Sister, and the album is Save Me San Francisco. And
yeah.
It is amazing. The videos are great. They're you know how like videos used to be like they kind of told a story to the song.
Yeah.
All their videos were great on that album. They're all like that. And then I like the next album came out. I can't even tell you whatever albums there were because I wasn't a fan. But Save Me San Francisco, I loved it. Love Train. And then a couple of years ago, they redid Led Zeppelin 2. And it is the most amazing cover of anything I've heard. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm partial to them now, but they were so instrumental in that part of our lives together that Save Me San Francisco is my number one most influential album, I have to say.
And would you say that that's like You and the White Rabbit's song?
Soul Sister is probably, that's probably the song. For me, it would be.
Cool.
She'll probably be like, it's Taps. But
well, we don't. I picked a song for our wedding, and whenever we hear it, we think about our wedding, and that was the Honey Drippers, which was Robert Plant, and The Sea of Love, which is their cover of The Sea of Love. Robert Plant and Jimmy Page played in the band called the Honey Drippers, and their version of Sea of Love was our wedding song.
Was that before or after the Yardbirds?
No, it was way after Zeppelin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's sort of it's a romantic kind of. It was Robert Plant. It was kind of a goofy album.
Hey, I'm a 67's man.
Yeah, Robert Plant. The might as well admit it. You're addicted to love. That guy.
No, Robert Plant, singer for Zeppelin.
Oh, who? Is Robert Palmer was the
Robert Palmer. If you're thinking,
right?
No, Robert Plant.
I don't know why I went dead there for a
second. Did a bit song album called the Honey Drippers.
Okay.
And they did a bunch of kind of big bandy kind of stuff. It was odd, but yeah. Sea of Love was hard. Did you well, Ree is not married, right? Are you engaged or but you haven't you're working on it. Yeah, okay. You got time. Young guy, you got time.
It's kind of expensive. Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, so that's our choices. And that's fascinating. I've got some research to do. Now I do have a little pile of CDs that got eliminated for various reasons, but I want to talk about because it's my stream, and you guys can bump off, or you can add your own. Do you guys have any honorable mentions? I'm going to throw. Let's raise your hand if you have an honourable mentions. No honorable mentions, because see, these guys came on kind of at the last minute. I'll just go through my honorable mentions, and if it rings any bells or anything you want to say. All right, the first one is Tangerine Dream's Poland. The Warsaw concert. Now, I remember I said I picked Risky Business, and so I felt it was unfair to pick this album because it's also Tangerine Dream, and Tangerine Dream is really the foundation of the Risky Business soundtrack. But if I was going to say an album that really, I always loved the Risky Business album, but this album made me buy every Virgin Records labeled Tangerine Dream. Every album, I mean, it opened the door to it. This is a live album.
So they played that in Poland?
In Poland. It was behind the Iron Curtain. And the Warsaw Pact felt it was not as threatening because it was simply instrumental music and there weren't any lyrics. And you can actually see some of this. There's actually a video recording from Poland of this concert, but it's cool. Like a 30-minute track. 22-minute opening track and 19 minutes. It's basically one huge epic. And the thing is, it's like it's so hypnotic and kind of monotonous and this sort of thing and moody, but it's very moody. It's very emotional music and it's very visual music. And when you start getting into it and you start realizing what these guys are doing on keyboards, it's 3 keyboard players. It's pretty jaw-dropping because they're improvising. They've got these big Moog modular synths that are rolling and doing sequences, and they're changing the sequences and they're mixing these keyboards in and out, and they're improvising in and out, and it's evolving. It's a classical improv piece with keyboards. It's quite amazing, and nobody has ever really come close and touched Tangerine Dream when it comes to electronic music. So this album, highly recommended. I am very Gen X. Yes. So that's one. And now Now this is the one that's going to make the chat really upset because they were dissing it. They had 2 chatters dissing it, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm Gosney. That's my stream, and you don't like it. Too bad.
Damn right, Gosney.
U2 Octung Baby. Now
I like their best album, right?
This is their best album, and check it out. There's the old ticket. I saw them in Miami on this tour, and I will say, I wasn't a big U2 fan, and what was it? I mean, they were good, and I liked them, but it was kind of like okay, and they were so serious and pretentious.
My favorite.
They did "With or Without You." The album, the Joshua Tree album was so huge,
amazing.
So overplayed though, and when you lived through it, it was like
overplayed, but it's overplayed because it's perfect.
I understand. I get it. Okay, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying that it was overplayed. It was too soft. I was a metalhead, wasn't into it, right?
Doesn't that have Bullet the Blue Sky on it?
Huh?
Doesn't that have Bullet the Blue Sky on it?
No, that was maybe that. Anyways, here's the point. This album, to me, is their greatest album because they reinvented themselves. They took their band, took it apart, they dropped everything apart, they ripped it down, and they rebuilt it from the ground up and came out with something truly original, truly unique. The sounds, the mixes, the songs. This album is great front to back, and it ends with "Love Is Blindness." And if you haven't heard epic U2, "Love Is Blindness" is it. So highly recommend this one. Now, it changed my life. See, that's the thing. It changed my opinion of the band, but it didn't really change my life. But on the other hand, we have some commenters here who are dissing U2, and I get it because I'm like, they're pretentious and all that. But this is the album, they reinvent. They said, look, we've gone as far as we can go with what we've done. We're going to recreate ourselves. We're going to embrace the rock star thing. We're going to go with electronic. We're just going to embrace everything that is getting thrown our way. And they came out with a great album.
It's better than what was the one that like they basically gave everyone.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that there was Europa, and there was the Zoo TV tour, and then there was the Pop album, which was also really good. But then they did that. Then they started. I think they kind of lost their wheels and haven't really done anything great after that. Maybe
the one with Vertigo on it. That was terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. But the Octung Baby, freaking amazing. Now here's another one. And it's another one that I can say. So somebody was talking about blues, and I'm kind of sick of blues. I've heard blues. And it's Robert Johnson. You were talking about Robert Johnson and blues.
Yeah, man, blues is blood. Blues. I can't believe I didn't put in Black Crows.
Well, you consider honorable mentions, okay?
Yeah.
But this is an album that I'm like, I can listen to this any day, anytime, and think the blues are amazing. And it's John Lee Hooker, The Healer. Have you ever heard John Lee Hooker's The Healer?
I heard Lee Hooker. I don't think I've heard that album though.
Somebody was talking about Carlos Santana, and he does he plays a bunch of collaborations. The first one is The Healer, which is amazing, and it's got Carlos Santana playing on it. Then he's got Carlos Santana, and then he's got John Lee Hooker and Bonnie Raitt, John Lee Hooker and Robert Cray, John Lee Hooker and Canned Heat, John Lee Hooker and Los Lobos, John Lee Hooker and George Thorogood.
George Thorogood, nice.
Yeah, and then Charlie Musselwhite. And then he does 3 songs solo at the back. And it's just him with his guitar and a microphone. And it's just pure, awesome John Lee Hooker blues. John Lee Hooker, check out The Healer. I think I love John Lee Hooker is my number one. I love John Lee Hooker. His blues are to the soul right here. So the thing is this kind of is, to me, this is a peak blues album. People might know John Lee Hooker from the Blues Brothers when he was in, singing the how, hey, he's like in the street.
Oh,
that's
awesome,
John
man.
Lee Hooker.
That's awesome.
And here's another one for you guys. The Cars, first album,
I like the
underrated, criminally underrated band. This album, I will say, my first band I was ever in when I played in a bass, we played 4 songs off this album. So I wasn't as into it. I mean, they're a great band, but I played this stuff. This was the first stuff I ever really played on bass with a band. It was Good Times Roll, My Best Friend's Girl.
So the Good Times Roll.
My best friend's girlfriend. Just What I Needed, and we did that one. And
everyone knows Just What I Needed.
And Bye Bye Love. Those were the 4 songs we played. So did it change my life? I don't know. But when I hear this stuff, I think about that first band. It was called Bon Air, named after the air conditioner company warehouse we practiced in.
You got to get a name somehow.
Let's see. I've got 4 more here. Do you guys want to jump in? Do you got any? Is it inspiring you in any way?
I've got an honorable mention.
Okay.
And I almost mentioned it instead of the Between the Buried and Me album I mentioned earlier. So instead of Colors, I almost mentioned The Anatomy of, which I did talk about for a minute, and that's a Between the Buried and Me album. But it's all covers of different songs. And what's crazy is that you've probably listened to a little bit of Between the Buried and Me, Steve, but they've got covers that range from Cemetery Gates by Pantera, and they have a cover of Bicycle Race by Queen. So the album is all over the place. They have a cover of Three of a Perfect Pair you're talking about. And
what's the name of the album?
It's called The Anatomy of, and it's Between the Buried and Me. They actually have a cover of Us and Them.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's any honorable mentions, Expert, before I finish out the show here. I got 4 more albums on my honorable mention. I overpicked. I was just going through my collection saying, oh, that one and then that one, and then I had to go through. I'm like, I don't have 20, so I took the ones that I said, okay, not that one, that one. I sorted it.
Well, after you disparaged the blues, that made me think. Oh,
no,
wait,
I didn't. I'm not. I'm just saying I've heard so much of it.
I know
that it's I burned it out. But that's an album, it just refreshes it.
I think blues is got a little bit of revitalization. I mean, you got John Mayer going out there doing his thing, and he's probably one of the greatest guitar players of all time. So,
well, I like one that I don't know, man. This guy, I used to be really into it and all the stuff, and I couldn't tell you what his last album was, but Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Oh,
yeah, he's a blues guy. Yeah, he was like 16 when he got real hot. His first song was Deja Voodoo, and what's weird about it was I was listening to it and stuff. I was playing in a band and all this stuff, and my dad comes in one day. He goes, "Have you heard of this song?" I was like, "Yeah, I know that song. What are you talking about, Dad?" And he's like, "Yeah." And a friend of his daughter has writing credits on that song.
That's cool.
And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And so kind of learned a little bit about the background of it and stuff, but. Yeah, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, I think, would be an honorable mention.
Okay, well, you know what? That's an interesting honorable mention because, I'm such a, like I said, I'm such a fanboy. Have you ever heard of the album "Going Home" by Kenny Wayne Shepherd?
I do now. What about it?
Tony Franklin played with Kenny Wayne Shepherd on the "Going Home" album.
Okay, awesome.
And toured with him. I think
True Lies is the first one of his that I heard. Or what's it called?
All right, here's another album. And this is an album that sort of, I don't know. It's one I listened to into the dirt when I was in college. And it's called Peter Gabriel's So. And this has got
Peter Gabriel's awesome.
Red Rain, Don't Give Up, That Voice Again in Your Eyes, Mercy Street. Big Time. We do what we're told. This is the picture. I mean, and I like those oddball songs at the end too. Great, because they're not played ever. This album front to back is great. The production was great. And it's when I first got the CD player, and the quality of this album is so well mixed. So yeah, and MG Law, I'm with you on this. I get it. And I did a whole stream on about, I like the Phil Collins era Genesis, right? And I think this is odd, but I think Gabriel's better solo alone, and I think Genesis is better without Gabriel. Which is a different opinion. Not everybody has that, but I think when Gabriel left, we benefited because we got a better Genesis and a better Gabriel. So, but that's my opinion. But this album here, I listened to this and it kind of got me into all the Peter Gabriel stuff. So I have everything he's done. And this album was so well produced, and the quality of it on my CD player, maybe that was what it was, but this is a great album. Here's another one that's sort of David Gilmour, About Face. I think it's his second solo album, and there's a concert that goes along with this. It's phenomenal that if you want to watch, and it's like it kind of this solo tour, he was doing arenas, and he's like, with Pink Floyd, I could do stadiums. So he stopped and he went and reformed Pink Floyd, and they've been in the lawsuits and all that. But this album is phenomenal. I mean, it's a great album. Gabriel shows you who really is doing the music in Pink Floyd with this album. I mean,
that's fair.
I think it's his best album. And it goes just to throw it out here. We got Genesis, Abacab, which again, great stuff. I got one more, and this is an oddball. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the best, the most, it doesn't influential, but it's so different and people kind of forgot about him, and it's worth a listen, and it's so unusual. And it's called Morphine, Cure for Pain.
Yeah, no Morphine.
And this guy, he's a 2-string bass player that plays with a slide.
That's cool.
And this album, this always reminds me of a friend I had who passed away a drug overdose. And he was such a funny guy. He was a really nice guy, my friend Kevin. And he told me about this album, and I listened to it, and it's so cool. It's such a cool, slinky, like just unusual sound. It's a bass player who plays with a slide and on a 2-string bass and sings really cool, with this kind of it's a cool drummer who's really like kind of high. And then there's a sax player. So there's 3 guys, and a sax player plays 2 saxes at once. It's really, I mean, if you've never heard Cure for Pain, and especially like the first song, Buena, oh my goodness, got to listen to that. And Cure for Pain is great. But awesome album. So I'm just going to throw that out as one that maybe you haven't heard, maybe you've forgotten. Go back and listen to it. And
but I think definitely one of the most impactful bands of all time is Huey Lewis and the News.
Yeah, that's it. He's a good guy. Don't knock on old Huey, man. That was an uplifting.
I actually love Huey Lewis and the News. I actually really, really like them, and I know why Patrick Bateman does too, because he has excellent taste.
Yeah, that's from American Psycho.
Is that
do you like Huey Lewis and the News?
It is.
Any more? What do you call it? Honorable mentions there.
My last honorable mention will be "Whenever You Need Somebody" by Rick Astley. Not just for the meme. I know what you're thinking, but actually, Rick Astley is ironically an amazing singer, a great songwriter, and performer.
And he's never going to let you go.
He's never going to let you down.
What was
I think
that?
I saw you that time, Steve.
Oh my goodness! All right, well,
serious, by the way. That is actually one of my favorite, most impactful albums.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was almost going to show this the Lord of the Ree thing at Rumble if you want to check out some of his music.
I earned it by wearing my heart on my sleeve and being honest in spite of
I respect it. I'm just you got to take the blowback. You got to take the good with the bad. You're going to lay it out there. You got to take a couple jabs.
I'm fine with it.
Hey,
that's awesome.
You're a good man and a PRS owner. I can't knock it.
Yeah,
I look,
awesome, dude.
We should probably, what we should do? Here's a good stream, and I just thought of another good stream as we're going out. Top 10 guilty pleasures that people would be embarrassed that we actually listen to and like. I think that might be a music stream coming up. All right.
Hey, since he's not here, I will say I may have seen a video of Valhalla dancing to Taylor Swift.
I mean, can you really blame him though? I mean, say what you will. Shit's catchy. Shit's catchy. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, all right, you know what? I will say I do like that. It's like that bubblegum pop. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your final? You have any final honorable mentions there?
Yeah, my final I have to say is, and I didn't put this on my list, and it is my number one album of all time. It's the album that when I'm stuck and I'm like, man, what do I want to listen to? It is by a band called Jackal and their first album.
Okay.
And it's let's see here. Who was the producers? I can't think of his name now. Anyway, he did a lot of the Aerosmith songs and everything. The guy that had the real long beard, with David Geffen. See, I used to know all the stupid nerdy stuff, but anyway, yeah, Jackal. They were very they were guitarist on everything else, and got to know some of the members. And then Rubin? I found out this like 2 weekends ago that Valhalla was security for Jesse James Dupree, the lead singer. That's cool. For a while. Yeah, it's like that's pretty cool, dude.
See, there's a lot of personal connections to different bands. And that's the thing. Those are bands that change your life. And one of those things is them, and like, oh, those are cool guys, and I like them. I hung out with them. Here, we'll give a little more. That was the mosh pit for POD opening for Ginger.
I've seen POD. They're really good.
Yeah, good band. They were really good. And actually, Tatiana, the lead singer for Ginger, is married to the drummer there that was playing with POD.
That's cool. Another underrated, kind of in that vein of bands, was Pillar. I saw them at the same concert as POD, and their drummer, ridiculous.
Yeah, POD. I'd never heard him before, and I was impressed. And the drummer was killer, and that was Tatiana's babe. She's just newlywed with him, and so they toured together, and I went and bought a POD record. I mean, and it's a Christian band too, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. So next up, probably music, guilty pleasures of music, ones that we would be embarrassed to say. I can even think, I know exactly which one I'm going to name. Madonna's Dick Tracy soundtrack.
Oh.
So that's a teaser for all you to come back and watch the rest of it, to tell us
any Sheryl Crow song.
Any Sheryl Crow. I saw Sheryl Crow live.
Reba McEntire.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, this was fun. It's getting late. We've had a long.
This is great, stream. Man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting me come on, Steve. It was nice meeting you, Mr. The Expert, and thank you for having me on.
Dude, it was great meeting you, and congratulations. I didn't know this was your first time ever live streaming, man. This is how did you like it?
I was a little nervous, but I had fun, playing music, that little stage fright never hurt nobody.
Listen, Godsley's the best person to stream with, man. He really is the best, and so that's awesome you got on with him. This is great. Thank you so much for including me in this.
Questions like balls or no balls.
Yeah. I don't know. I still don't get it. But Expert,
yeah, I don't either.
As we go out, everybody knows the Expert. But if there happens to be one person in my chat that doesn't know the Expert, where would they find you, and what do you sell or promote?
Tomorrow night's Friday Night Live. It's YouTube at the, and then there's a little underscore, The Expert, and just come hang out. We're just it's a bunch of us all hanging out, and awesome. It's what the goal is to have that experience you had like in high school or college, and you're hanging out with your buddies, your friends, and everybody's sitting around, you're drinking, telling jokes, making fun of each other and stuff like that, and everybody loves each. Yeah, see, exactly like Lord of the Rings guy, he's got it figured out, and we do a great job with it, and so that's
and you might see Danielle might make an appearance, and Danielle is my super mentoree. Yeah. And she's in the chat here, and I will tell you, I've got another book coming out soon. I think I might have told you here. I've been crushing it again on my. So we've got Death Penalty Desires, which is it's drafted. Although after talking with my son this today, I'm gonna slow down a little bit because I've written 28,000 words in 7 days. Or actually, it's probably 4 days, really. But I took off.
I don't think you have enough books yet, Steve.
I know. But I love writing, and this is I'm so much fun. So Death Penalty Desires, Passion, Murder, and Death Row is probably going to be the next book up. Oh, look, Lord of the Rings got Prepare. There you go. That's Danielle's favorite book. There's a couple more. There's 3 hardcovers, signed and number hardcovers left, and I could really use the these are 85, but it's a fundraiser. This is 7 of 9. I've got three of these left, and I've got 5 ideas and answers, and these are meant to be fundraisers for my next book. Or you can just get any of my books at stevegosney.com. The next one up is probably going to be Death Penalty Desires. I'm going to do a pre-order as soon as I get the cover art, which I've ordered, done and happy with. Then I'll put up a pre-sale and we'll start going. But anyways, thank you all for being here, and God bless you. And any rewatch crew, thank you especially for the rewatch crew, and thanks to everybody for showing up and listening to us talk music.
Thanks, guys.
It was fun. God bless y'all.